Counselors, again, please enter your attendance on Echo 360. We still need a lot of you. Again, counselors, please log in your attendance if you haven't done so. I'll be given 1 more minute and then I'm gonna move on. We need 7 of you to log in and put in your attendance on Echo 360, please. Okay, I'm gonna move on to the approval of the agenda. So first I'll review the agenda items before we approve the agenda. The agenda today includes approval of the agenda and minutes, comments from the chair, myself, executive presentations, and a board of directors report. Following that, the for action portion includes the election of standing committee chairs, the motion to approve the executive reports, the motion to approve the executive roadmaps, and the motion to approve the executive budget. Before we move on to approve the agenda, are there any questions regarding the agenda of this meeting to be made at this time? Are there any amendments or points of debate? Are there any objections to the agenda? Seeing as there are no further questions, amendments, or objections, do I have a mover to approve this agenda? Councillor Lovey. Do I have a seconder to approve this agenda? Councillor Thompson. We will now move to Echo 360 to vote on the approval of the agenda. Disconnecting and reconnecting. Oh, like it's fully, like it's not. Oh.
Not awake yet. So gotta be something between. Oh, really? Yeah.
Sorry, counselors, we're having some technical difficulties, so it'll just be a moment. Also, please vote on Echo 360. We need a lot of you guys still to approve the agenda. Haven't gotten any Slack messages or anything. Yeah. If you guys are having trouble voting on Echo 360, please message Dana or I on Slack. Yeah, it is. Can I get a seconder? Counselor Wasty. The motion to recess is approved. Oh. Okay, we will now go into voting period. All in favor for a recess? The motion passes. We will now be taking a 5-minute recess. Please stay on the Zoom call. We're just figuring out some technical difficulties.
And the way I'm literally like TBD, 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 like I don't know. Sorry. I'm just gonna coerce people into running. Yeah.
All's well then.
Yeah, so I'm gonna be like, you would be so great.
Yeah, where'd she go? Uh-huh. I think that's where I think that's where this whole thing enough. I think both those films first because they're I remember. Yeah. Yeah, no, I just sat in there, did not read it. I saw my name and I was like, that's me. I asked, that's so funny. Yeah, I still don't know like that. No, I'll be back. I'll be back. I think forever. Just so you know, you have your own on-off filter. You have your own on-off switch.
Yeah.
So if you're not talking, and other people are, just jump out. Oh, and then if you're saying something.
I think we're back. So Max, we have a problem with the video card isn't powerful enough to drive some projectors here. The other thing is dongles like that for taking big power. So we just have like a we can throw on. Yeah, which is
So just use this from now on now?
yeah.
Okay.
So yeah, when we come in and set up and stuff, we'll just bring them in.
Maybe next time. Yes.
Okay.
To come up there.
I'm gonna ask you guys to come to the podium.
Okay. Because they'll come to the podium for their example. But this is like in the budget section.
The time the time is now 10:35. I call this meeting back to order. Counselors, we need a good handful of you to vote on Echo 360 for the approval of the agenda still. If you guys are having issues with that, please message Dane or I on Slack and we can figure that out.
Oh.
I don't, maybe. See.
Okay.
Off the Zoom. I'm just trying to find my. Okay, we'll be moving on now. Moving on to the minutes, we will now move to approve the minutes from our previous council meeting. Can I have a mover to introduce the motion? Councillor Bowles. Can I have a seconder? Councillor Chow. Are there any questions regarding the minutes? Are there any amendments or points of debate? Are there any objections? Perfect. Please move to Echo 360 to vote on the approval of the minutes. 30 more seconds, counselors. The motion passes. We will now move on to the comments from the chair. Today we'll be voting on our standing committee chairs. A reminder for everybody who's self-nominating themselves. Each of you will be given 2 minutes to give a chair nomination speech and will answer no more than 2 questions from council. Following speeches and questions, council will vote by a secret ranked ballot. The ballots will be counted by myself or a designate and be destroyed immediately afterwards. I will call for a recess following our executive presentations and board of directors report. So then following the recess, we will do this election. And a reminder for those of us joining on Zoom today, once I do call a recess, please remain on the Zoom call as we'll be resuming the meeting at 1 p.m. for our 4 action items. Moving on to the presentation section, we'll first start off with the July Council executive reports. I invite President Henriquez to the podium to present her council executive report.
Hey guys, how's everybody doing? Good, excellent. I saw you all at breakfast like 20 minutes ago, so hope you've been well in that time. This is really exciting. This is my first, or the team's first executive report, so I guess I will go through my top 3 highlights. I think the first big one is having a full office, so I started a little bit earlier than these guys, so it was kind of empty before they got here, so very, very excited to have the full executive team, and now they've hired their team, so we've got like the full student staff for the most part that'll be working at the USC this coming year, so that's really exciting. This was another fun one related to Rock the Runway. So Reagan's second day of work, I took her to the airport to do our first walkthrough of where Purple Fest Rock the Runway will happen, and it was kind of a bizarre day, I would say, but a really fun one. In the middle of like thesis writing and exam prepping, they were like, "Hey, can you take like 2 hours off to go to the airport?" So that was fun. And the last one was this marathon of a week that we had right after graduation. So the week of graduation was condensed this year and moved downtown. So all the graduations happened in 1 week instead of 2. So right after graduation, a few of us who graduated or were working the convocations on the Thursday tracked down to Toronto for an alumni event. And then immediately following the alumni event, I had board training with your counterparts on the board of directors. Then I had Purple Care, the health and dental plan training with Wade and some of the board of directors, and Zara, who's here in the room as the council representative. And then we had like a 3-day advocacy retreat where we were meeting with alumni and stuff, which I'll talk about later in our report. So it was just like 8 very full days, and it was really fun, but I was really tired, but an amazing way to start off this job. Okay, so for updates, so roadmap and budget will have a dedicated presentation later in this meeting after the executive reports and the board of directors report is completed. But just at a very high level, roadmap and budget are really labors of love here at the USC. It's several full team meetings with the executive as well as our senior management team, so who run a lot of the departments here at the USC on the corporate side to establish, the priorities for the year. A lot of things can change between when a platform is released. So myself, Jenna, and Omar during their council elections would have released platforms. So distilling 3 platforms into 1 executive direction for the year. And then obviously as the school year develops, you develop a platform sometimes months in advance, and then you've got 3 months of legislation and other things that come up that can shift the way that a year transforms. But all in all, I think the roadmap is a really well distilled combination of our priorities as an executive team and stays very true to the priorities that were in our platforms. I think when Omar, Jenna, and I were elected, our platforms were really aligned, which makes it easy to distill that into 1 strategic direction. And as well, we finalized the allocation. So the way that the budget works is actually Council 2024-2025 sets the totals for each portfolio. So budgeting at the USC, there's a corporate budget that's overseen by the board of directors. And then there's the portfolio budgets for the executive. So you oversee us, so you oversee our budgets as well. So your counterparts last year would have set the totals that each of us were allowed to spend for this year and gone through the fee increases and things like that. And then once the 6 of us are in our jobs, we look at the total allocation given to us in our portfolio and we sort it by initiatives and priorities. So there are dedicated line items for each of the things that we plan. So like orientation in part lives in Reagan's portfolio, USC Day lives in Todd's portfolio. And depending on what the priorities are, we mix and match and reallocate the money, but the totals don't change. So if council last year approved 100,000 for someone, that's the money that they have, but they get to choose where it's spent. And then we'll do a presentation explaining that to you and then you vote on it. So more to come on that. Revisioning advocacy, this has been emerged as a really big priority for this executive team. I think one of the things we're really focusing on is I think it's a belief of mine and the executive team that every position is an advocacy position. We're an advocacy first organization. It's our job to platform and bolster the student voice to government, to the university, to students so they know that we are getting and receiving their feedback and actioning that. So advocacy is present in everything from events to services to these reports to the work that you guys do. So in keeping with that, we're really focusing heavily on re-engaging with a broad array of stakeholders. One of the things that I ran on when I was running for president is engagement at all 3 levels of government because you are students, but you're also citizens. And so it's really important that your voices are represented as a majority stakeholder group in the lives of young people in the city, the province, and the country. And as well, stakeholder engagement is students, but is also administrators here at the university who are also working for your student experience. So in part and parcel with that Gradvocacy Week, we call it that because it happened during graduation, we have been meeting with a ton of our alumni who work in the government relations sector, as well as those who have gone on from being executives to staffing at different levels of government to see, what are the ways that we can work with government and get government to hear your voices, as well as how can we work with administration and get administration to hear your voices. So that's been really cool. Purple Fest at Rock the Runway. This has been a big one. I feel like we've been talking about it all weekend. I'm sure that you've heard who the artists are, but in case you haven't, the artists have been announced and the tickets are live. This is actually probably the first project that I started here when I was elected. So before I had Reagan or the rest of the executive team who have all played such a huge role in working on this, this project was brought to me as like a potential opportunity. And so this is actually what evolved from the Mustang Multi-Day Music Festival platform point. Did I think we would be doing a concert on the runway? No, I did not. But I think the best evolution of that platform point. I know some of you have already shared it on your like council Slacks or your social medias, but please do so. We're expecting a huge movement of tickets once a week arrives because the first years will be here. So we want to make sure that students who are here right now are getting the opportunities to purchase. And if they're not on campus or not as tapped in, they may be missing that. So if you can post it to your Slacks and your various group chats and your soft teams and your council social medias, that would be great. Okay, Bill 33. So some of you may have heard of this through the ether or from, it would have been in your standing committee yesterday if you're on the EA standing committee. But Bill 33 is a newer bill that's been introduced at Queen's Park, so provincial legislation. The province is really our biggest government stakeholder when it comes to a lot of the things about how post-secondary educational institutions operate. So this was introduced earlier this summer. And it was an omnibus bill, so it had, things that were impacting like the Ministry of like Children and the Ministry of Education. But the part that's relevant to us in particular at the USC, there were 3 kind of things related to post-secondary education. So it was like research security planning and admissions, and then relevant to us, the regulation of ancillary fees. So ancillary fees are non-tuition fees that students pay into. And a large part of the USC's revenue, I would say the majority of our revenue, comes from ancillary fees. So ancillary fees is like, you'll see if you pull up your like student center, you'll see like X amount of dollars goes to the marching band and Y amount of dollars, goes to sport and rec. And so there's a set of ancillary fees that come to the USC and that we either redistribute to other groups or we keep to run the services, the essential services that we have. And then there are ancillary fees that are collected by the institution, so Western, and stay with Western. So that's things like the sport and rec fee or some of the wellness fees. And so this bill is looking at regulating the way those fees are collected. So what kind of fees are collected, what fees are mandatory, and what fees are not. We don't really have a full picture of what the legislation is going to look like because it was just introduced. So we don't have the language yet. That'll come in the fall. But we've been really heavily engaging and kind of leading in the university side of things, the University Students Association. We've been leading in the sector in terms of government engagement on this kind of thing, which Omar will get further into on his report. But if you have any questions for us on this bill, as soon as we know things, you'll know things. But we're happy to kind of keep you updated and go through some things. Coming up, I did this a little bit out of order on the slides. Elections reform. So this is something that's been a strategic priority of the USC's for a while. We know every year with elections, new issues come up. I feel like I don't need to tell this group how difficult elections are. Like, I feel like if there's a group on campus who gets it, it's probably you guys. But we're working on some more fulsome changes to the way that we do elections policy and governance here at the USC. So elections are jointly overseen by both the board and council. So the board is currently looking at some draft policy. I won't get too into this because Grace, who is our new board chair, is on the Zoom, and she'll be kind of running through some of the process stuff that we've been doing around that. So I don't want to steal her thunder. But eventually, policy will come to this floor and through the standing committees for you guys to look at and see what we're doing. But essentially, we're making the guidelines a lot clearer. I can tell, having been a candidate, and I'm sure you guys can too, like sometimes difficult to know like what the rules are, like what's the playbook, like what can and can't you do. And sometimes the only updates you ever get are from campaign school in the fall or like the actual all candidates meeting like right before you run. And so we're really prioritizing getting these changes passed and approved and socialized before the school year is really off into full swing. That way, people aren't planning stuff not knowing what the rules are, because the thing that's most fair to candidates and most fair to our democracy is students like knowing what the bounds are and knowing what the playing field looks like so they can make the decisions that are best for them as candidates, and then students at large are able to vote with all of those things in mind. So that's been some really exciting work. We've been working with our lawyers on that, which has been fun. I went to the lawyers on my birthday to talk about this, so that was a fun way to spend 22. But Grace will give more of an update about that, and you'll be hearing more about that at some upcoming council meetings. And then the final part of my update, which is the fun part, is the USC is 60 this year. It's our 60th birthday. As an incorporated, like provincially incorporated entity. I know yesterday Dane was running us through like the history of the USC in like the 30s and the 40s, but we were officially incorporated in 65. So we consider that like our start as an organization in this iteration. So this is Team 60, which is really exciting. We're going to get lots of merch that has the number 60 on it, which is really cool. We did a great alumni event, like I mentioned, in Toronto, celebrating the last 60 years of student leadership. So we had executives from like 30, 40, almost 50 years ago coming in to join us. And we'll be doing a lot more programming with our executive alumni in the fall. The USC is a really special organization because the alumni are always willing to come back and help us. I can't tell you the number of calls the six of us have had with alumni asking about like, how did you do a week when it was this? And like, what did you do during COVID? Or how did you get this like thing passed at city council like 15 years ago? And they're always willing to chat with us, even though they're like wildly successful, like very busy. A lot of them are parents, a lot of them are getting married, all of those things. So we want to give back to how much they give back to us. But I would love to get your feedback on any of the ways that we should be celebrating with students on campus. You guys are Council 60, so that's a big thing that I think is there to be proud of. So if you have any feedback on that kind of thing, would love to hear it. And I think that's it for me. Do I take questions now or do I? Okay. Sorry, does anybody have any questions? Yeah. Do I say Dylan or
Sorry.
I say Dylan?
Sorry.
Counselor Thompson. Sorry.
I don't know if the mic's on or anything, but
Is it?
you mentioned the like election reform.
Mm-hmm.
So you want to have that implemented like for January.
Yes, so it'll be definitely done before January, pending the approval of both the board and council. So this is something that's being driven and primarily by like the executive and full-time staff, because year over year we've seen some issues, and elections policies tend to be pretty cyclical. Like every couple of years, you kind of like look at the issues that have arisen. We get feedback from candidates and kind of community members, and then we'll look and do a more fulsome review of elections policy. So that's what we're doing now. So Right now, it's sitting with the board, and they're looking at it for like all of the board side of elections, and what they're responsible for overseeing. And then whatever iteration of the policy passes as like a board stamp of approval, we like this. It preserves our democracy and protects candidates. That's kind of the priority for elections policy. Want to make sure it preserves or safeguards democracy here on campus. We believe students are the best decision makers, and they can make well-informed decisions if they're given the information that they need. So making sure that that part is preserved while also protecting people who want to run and encouraging people to run, because the biggest issue with a student-run organization, if nobody feels safe to run, the student organization part is kind of missing. So once that goes through board, it'll be in a future council meeting where you guys will have a chance to look at it, standing committee level, and then here at council at large, ask any questions, do all the fun counselor things, and then we'll pass it here. And then it'll be communicated outwards through whatever iteration of elections governance we have, as well as like to students at large. Yeah. Okay. How do I say your last name? Okay. Counselor Sanyolu, what's up? Yeah, so I don't want to steal Omar's exec report, but I'll say very broadly, we are heavily prioritizing engaging with government. I think we believe it's really important to be in the room and really explain to them our values. So we had a very productive meeting with Minister Quinn when he was on campus here last. Minister Quinn is an Ontario politician, and he's the Minister of Colleges, Universities, Research, Excellence, and Security. I'm curious. Talking to him about our fees. What are you talking about in your report? I don't want to okay, I'll do a high level and he'll kind of get into it, but walking him through like why our fees are broken down the way that they are, talking about the fees that we have that are opt-outable. I think we really pride ourselves at the USC of having a very transparent and democratic fee process. So I can get into all the nitty gritty, but like, we have a committee that approves like the introduction of new student fees and referendums that go on so that students can vote for the fees that they want to pass. So some of you would have been old enough to be here when like the bimertual doctor fee was approved, for example, and that goes to the student body at large because they get a say in what they spend money on. Our fee bill is broken down so you can see exactly, how much student dollars are going to things like advocacy and how many student dollars are going to things like the Gazette and all of those things. You'll see it on your student center. We've engaged with government through like formal processes. So they do consultations where we like submit information to it. And then we're also working through our connections to the provincial government, as well as our other advocacy organizations that we're part of, like USA, which Omar will speak to more in depth. So I'm feeling very comfortable about our position. We're being really proactive and really smart in the way that we're engaging, and making sure that we are engaging. So rather than like passively waiting for news to come, we're like actively in there representing students, speaking to our locally elected officials, speaking to staffers, speaking to other people in the sector. Can't tell you the number of calls I've had with like other student union presidents asking about our approach, because I think the approach we take at the USC is a standout in the sector, and is something that I think we would like to see across the sector as well, and are happy to support with that. So yeah, as we get more information, like we need kind of like the text of the legislation, which we won't see until, the provincial government is like back in session, I think in October. But yeah, happy to answer more questions about that as we have the information. And I think you'll get a really fulsome picture when the rest of the executive reports are coming as well. Yeah. Is it Bose or Bows? Councillor Bose.
When it comes to
I think we're taking a really holistic look at the elections and the rules that we have, and also looking at kind of like the, sorry, my sister's calling, looking at the history of the elections policies and the way that we've guided it before. We've got a really awesome legal team over at Mackenzie Lake who are helping us with that process. So I can't really speak to like what it'll actually look like now because it's still pending both board and council approval. But we're really just looking at, what are the complaints that are coming in from candidates or students at large? What are like the big, sometimes like mishaps that happen in elections that we can kind of curb? And I think the approach that I'm taking is like really coming from a place of how can we ensure that the most amount of students feel safe to run and safe to express their opinions, because that's what's really going to preserve the student voice here at the USC. If we, if you have, only people from like a certain faculty or a certain constituency group or a certain background, education or otherwise, running, you're not really going to get like a full picture of what students on campus are feeling. And I think like time and time again, we hear like not so great stories about candidate experiences. And if you want to chat offline about mine, I'm happy to do that. But I think overall, what we're really looking at is seeing what's working and what's not working, and then trying to introduce like different alternatives, but really letting the student voice lead. So like we have got like a number of options that we've presented to the board that they'll be looking at. And Grace will speak to that in her report, kind of the process that we followed, like meeting with the lawyers and having things drafted up and then bringing it to council or bringing it to board, getting it sent back, revising, editing, all of those fun things that some of you will do after you write the LSAT and go to law school and do all those things that counselors tend to do. But I think overall, the goal is really to look at it kind of from like a holistic lens and look at policy as also a culture changing tool. So if we can have policies that are really clear, hopefully it'll change some of the not so positive culture that we can sometimes have around elections, and let the focus really be like the issues and democracy on campus and students feeling heard, supported, and seen by the USC. That was a good question. Anybody else?
Thank you, President
Great.
Henricus. I invite VP Jam to the podium to present her council executive report.
Hello, everyone. This weekend has been so great, and I hope you guys have enjoyed the retreat so far. This is really exciting to be up here because I was a counselor. Me and Saad were both counselors last year, actually, and we used to watch these reports, so it's kind of full circle to be up here to be giving them. But yeah, so we haven't asked me about, and mine is starting yoga and Pilates with the girls. That was kind of something me and the girls decided to do, Kat and Reagan, this summer, kind of for health and wellness, kind of to like wind down after work, and it's been really nice. I think we're going to yoga later today, but yeah, so you can ask me about that. And so top three highlights was, first of all, graduating. These 4 years have gone by so fast, I feel, and it was just really nice to kind of have my parents there and my sister, and to graduate at the new, it was downtown at Canada Life Place this year, so that was really a big highlight. Another one was Rock the Park. Our whole team went this year, and it was really exciting, and we were able to get so close to Hosier, and it was just really insane and super fun. And then also seeing my family. For those who don't know, my family actually, like my parents, they live abroad, so I only really get to see them twice a year in the summer and in winter. So it was really nice to have my parents come up for my grad, and my dad just left last week, so it was really nice and a highlight for the summer for me. Some updates. So a lot of the summer for the VPUA usually looks like meeting with a lot of stakeholders, kind of building those relationships and kind of talking about priorities for the year, and also like ways to collaborate. And that's a lot of some of the campaigns and fairs that I'll also touch on in a second. But it was really great to kind of start those relationships that I didn't have before, and to kind of build on those, such as with Western International, the Ombudsperson, Student Experience, and some others, as well as like libraries, etc. And then also we are starting to plan for some campaigns and fairs. And so, for example, some that have happened in the past and are upcoming and will be collaborating on again will be such as Mental Health Day. So that's coming up October 8th. So like that's going to be collaborating with health and wellness. And so there's a bunch of different fairs and campaigns kind of working to kind of organize when those are going to be happening and plan from now. And there's some collaboration with me and Omar as well. So kind of getting that figured out, and also looking to start maybe some new campaigns around academic rights. So that's something I'm kind of looking into doing for this year. And then another update is that the Navitas, what is the word? I guess, yeah, proposal, I guess. Yeah, Navitas proposal or motion passed that Senate. So for those that don't know, Navitas is a third-party education provider for international students. And this was a really big topic on Senate for the last semester, I guess, in this past term. And in the June Senate meeting, the motion that was proposed by admin or by the provost passed. So we're very much looking forward to working with administration to make sure that the international students coming for the September 2026 intake are going to feel supported, a part of the USC, a part of this campus. So that's definitely a really big priority this year that maybe wasn't, as was mentioned, like there's things that come up that aren't expected necessarily coming into the term. So this is something that I'm very excited to be working on and making sure that these international students feel supported. And so some upcoming things. So there's going to be the academic and advocacy roundtables. I'm hoping to begin in August. So for any presidents here listening, if you have not received an email from my AVP reached out, I think 2 weeks ago to kind of get some information on who your VP academic and VP advocacy equivalents are. But we're going to be starting those up with each one of those VPs for the upcoming school year. So I'm really excited for that. And a Let Us Meet will be coming out soon to be sent to the provided emails to kind of set those up and start in August. And then another thing upcoming is a university budget recommendation. So this is something done every single year, usually drafted by the VPUA in collaboration with the president. And we look at priorities for the year, consultation with different departments across campus, and then also looking at previous surveys that students have filled out to kind of figure out what our priorities are for the year. And 3 asks come around time for the budget to be done by the provost in December. So kind of finalizing that recommendation proposal. So that is upcoming. And then lastly, starting on planning for the teaching, learning, and assessment position paper. So as mentioned yesterday, there's going to be 2 different position papers for the year that me and Omar, the VP External Affairs, will be working on. So in first semester will be teaching, learning, and assessment, and then second semester will be student accessibility. We're also potentially looking at some other position papers that maybe could be pulled, but we're looking forward to working with Dane, our governance manager, to kind of start planning on the consultations for the year and kind of a plan for the timeline for all of that. But yeah, that's all. Any questions? Yes. Counselor, is it Cho or Chow? Chow.
I'm just wondering. Your plans on growing attendance there. I got will.
Yeah, I definitely agree. And that's definitely something that was a really big priority, was to kind of branch outside of UCC. This campaign mostly will be in the atrium, but it's actually, we're going to be having, it's kind of like a 2-parter. I can't give too much information now because some of it is just not being shared yet because in collaboration with health and wellness, but there is going to be a part that will be on a different part of campus for the second half. So I'm really excited to share that information with you guys when I'm allowed to, but it's going to be really exciting this year, and it's going to be a lot bigger this year than it has in previous years. So I'm very excited to share that information with you guys when I'm able to. Yeah. Is there any other questions? Yes. Counselor Shao.
Just a quick clarification.
No, sorry. It's supposed to be an email sent to the president. And if you didn't receive an email, please message me on Slack just to make sure I am getting everybody's information, because I know some of the information hasn't been received. So I'll also be reaching out personally, maybe on Slack, to get that information for people who haven't responded. But if you're a president and you've not received an email, please feel free to reach out to me on Slack, and I'll make sure that we get the right email, because maybe there was a miscommunication in that, or a different email that was sent to. But yeah, no worries. Any more questions? All right, thank you.
Thank you, thank you, VP Jim. I invite VP Said to the podium to present his council executive report.
All right, so I guess my ask me about being a delegate for Fall GA. We'll be probably voting on that in September, and I'll talk a little bit about more what that means later, but that's kind of my ask me about for today. The top 3 highlights was that Gradvocacy/alumni trip that Kat mentioned. I really found it really helpful to kind of meet some of the alumni, especially in positions in government, and kind of had these roles before and had success in them. It was a really helpful trip to kind of get a fuller context of what these roles are, what they've looked like in the past, and kind of what levers we can pull to actually get things accomplished for our students. So I think that was a huge highlight so far of the summer. Rock the Park was a ton of fun, and I think it helped the team like really visualize what Rock the Runway was going to look like a bit more, and got us even more hyped for that. So it was a cool way to kind of prep for that too. And then London Pride was the other thing. That was what, last weekend, I think. And that was super fun. Pretty much the whole exec team was there supporting it, and it was just really nice to kind of be out with the community, meet some Western admin there as well. And it was just really fulfilling and fun to do as well. In terms of updates, I met with a lot of people, so mainly counselors, MPPs, and MPs. I have a really long list, but I was really glad to see. So during the transition period, there's about a month and a half overlap between the outgoing exec and the incoming exec. And I had the pleasure of kind of going with Michelle and meeting a lot of our important stakeholders that we meet with regularly, and having that kind of like three-way handoff meeting to kind of maintain those relationships. So that was super, super helpful. Some examples: city councilors were Councillor Troso, Raman, Frank, and then Mayor Josh Morgan, Deputy Mayor Sean Lewis. So these were really, really helpful conversations municipally. Provincially, we also met with Peggy Sattler during the transition phase, and then since Kat mentioned MPP Nolan Quinn and Liberal leader Bonnie Crombie, which is very interesting. And then federally, we also met with our local MP, Peter Fragiscatos, as well as looking for other meetings that we are setting up in the fall term. They're kind of like in between sessions right now, so it's a bit hard to set up meetings, but in the fall, we've got a bunch lined up with some more of the federal MPs. So that'll be super, super fun. My team was hired, so that's super, super exciting to start working with them, especially now that the roles have kind of been split into municipal, and then we have another role for provincial and federal coordinators. That'll be really nice. It'll really allow us to focus in on that municipal aspect. That was kind of a big platform point for me, so I'm really excited to kind of have a dedicated person for that. I think that'll be really, really exciting. Kat mentioned this earlier, so Bill 33, common submission and prep. So Kat kind of explained what Bill 33 was and those kind of 3 points that it hit. So when they released the kind of first version of the bill, we were able to submit comments on the very first draft of the bill. So we've done that as the USC, and also I've helped guide USA's comment submission. So we've kind of submitted two, one directly from the USC and one from USA in collaboration with 9 schools. And since this is my first time probably saying the acronym, I'm really bad at using acronyms and not explaining them, so I'm going to try my best. USA is the Undergraduate University Student Alliance. And so it's an alliance of 9 university student unions that kind of form this provincial organization, whose main purpose is to lobby to the provincial government, but they can also do some kind of other advocacy tasks. So that's our primary lever that we use for kind of communicating with the provincial government. But we also do have the ability to kind of set up meetings on our own, and also do our own advocacy outside of USA. For this issue, we've kind of decided to do a bit of both. So we're very much taking the approach of setting the USC up as like very much, the union who has things set up, I think the way the government wants to see. So they're looking to see transparency. They're looking to make sure that, students understand where their fees are going. And I think the way that our fees are set up right now are very transparent, especially looking across the sector. And so we're really trying to set ourselves as like the organization to use as the example to kind of minimize the impact on our students. And we're kind of trying to guide other student unions and kind of lead by example to make sure that the sector as a whole is really prepared to see this bill come through. And we're trying to guide the legislation in the way that it could be helpful for students, and try to make sure that isn't impactful negatively, right? So that's really kind of the approach that we're taking with Bill 33. And we've kind of mentioned taking on meetings separately as the USC, and also meeting through USA with really important provincial stakeholders. There'll probably be another big push for this kind of when the legislature returns in October. So it'll probably be the next time that we get a big update about this bill, or kind of really know the direction it's heading in. But we're definitely prepping ourselves to take on. The other thing that we're doing, so we're kind of like cautiously optimistic and preparing, I would say. The thing through USA that I think is really cool that we're doing is we're kind of getting the stakeholders all aligned and kind of ready to act if needed. So we're kind of trying to build some sort of preliminary coalition. So we're speaking to various different provincial unions that could be affected kind of on USA's level. So there's kind of a college version of USA called Ontario Student Voices that we're also working with. There's like the engineering version of USA, which is called ESCO, and there's like the nursing one and the Medical Students Association. There's all these like provincial associations that represent students. So we're trying to kind of align them all together and make sure that we're prepared to respond if needed, but also making sure that we're having the conversations and information sharing to kind of prepare for this issue. And hopefully this is like a more lasting thing that can help us with provincial advocacy more generally. So it's a really exciting initiative that I'm kind of, I like to see happening. In terms of other USA things, we just started the USA paper. So me and my team will be authoring the accountability and systems vision paper for USA this year. It's kind of a really long-winded way of saying how universities are kept accountable, how quality assurance happens at universities, and what we want the sector to look like. I don't love the name, but that's what it is. And then kind of looking in the future, so next council meeting, you'll likely see a federal budget submission being presented. So that's just like us telling the federal government what the USC wants to see from them. And so that'll be probably coming to you folks in the next month. And then my committee will have kind of the first look at that before it goes to general council. But if you have anything that you'd like to see included in there or have any thoughts, please let me know within the next week or so, because that's kind of when we'll be drafting it, but would love to hear any feedback there. And Jenna kind of already mentioned the advocacy fairs that we're running. So we're really taking a collaborative approach, Jenna and I, and it looks like we're going to have like some sort of fair probably every month, which is pretty ambitious, but we'll see how that turns out. And we'd love to have your feedback and participation with those. So as they kind of come up on the docket and we finalize the dates for those in the coming weeks, we'll definitely be asking for your feedback and your participation in those. And then finally, some things to look forward to. So USA runs a General Assembly twice a year, once in the fall, once in the spring. And that's where these position papers that we work on get passed, and we kind of get to send delegates to them. There's about like, I think 15, our number might change this year because of our population, but we get to send about 15 delegates to these conferences, which is really exciting. So this fall one is happening at Laurentian and Sudbury, and then the spring one is happening here at Western in the spring. So that'll be really fun. We'll get to host the GA for the first time since before COVID. So really looking forward to that. But yeah, any questions? Sanyolo, you said? Councilor Sanyolo? Yeah, that's up to you folks. So we're looking at the process right now for some identity-based papers. There might be a bit of a revision, but the way the process currently works is there's like some spots held, so that'll be for the president, the VPEA, and then anyone on my team that I have authoring that time. So this year there'll be 2 authors within my team. So that's like the 4 reserved seats that I mentioned earlier. And then the rest of the seats would be open to council. So there'll be an application. There's a bit of a screening process that goes through me and my team first. And then we take the candidates who like pass the screening process successfully to council, and council would vote on who gets to go. So really that's up to you as to how many councilors get to go. So that one first, I think. Councilor Adhikari? Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that's a good question. I think with the USC, we're just able to be a little bit more nimble and kind of more precise with exactly what we're advocating for, because we don't have to be in agreement with all 9 unions exactly, letter for letter, word for word for what we're doing. USA's advocacy strategy tends to be like a bit more long term. And takes just a little bit more time to do. So for something like this that's like on the docket coming up really soon and needs to be fast acting, it's nice to be able to have that slightly more nimble approach. And like I said earlier, our student union is a little bit different than like all the other student unions. They don't all have the same fee bill. They don't all have the same processes set up for transparency. So this bill would definitely affect some student unions differently than it would affect us. So we're really trying to highlight the incredible work that we've done here at the USC to make sure that students have that transparency. And it's a little bit harder to do to kind of reflect that across 9 schools that all have different systems and processes. We're just trying to show like what we have set up here. But definitely I see them working together. Like they're not opposed. It's just we can highlight some things here, and then there's some things that we can highlight with USA. I don't think they're in opposition. It's just 2 ways of going about it that I think are pushing towards the same goal, if that makes sense. Yeah. And then sorry, how do you Logus Warren? Yeah, Councilor Logus Warren. Sorry, can you use the mic? And it's
I had a I had a question regarding the fall conference. Um, During the fall conference, are we going to be seeing other universities like policy papers, like similar to the like accountability and systems vision? And are we going to be able to like give like, are we allowed to like take feedback, and can other universities also like give feedback regarding our paper as well?
So the way the USA papers work is they're all like it's one paper that's written by the 9 institutions. So USA creates one paper, and 9 institutions kind of put their input into it. So absolutely, like everyone, all the delegates, and especially the committees as well, will be able to see like draft versions of the paper while they're being written and give feedback to that. And it's one paper that's created from USA on behalf of the 9 institutions. So it's not like every institution makes their own. You might be getting a bit mixed up because there's like our internal policy papers that we spoke about yesterday too. So there's a set of papers that the USC itself writes, and those cover all levels of government and internal university administration, written in conjunction between me, UA, Pres, kind of the whole team. And then USA's papers are specifically provincial. They're written by USA with input from all 9 schools. Does that kind of clear it up?
Yeah, that clears it up. Thank you.
Yeah, no worries. Councilor Thompson?
Thank you. I'm just looking for a little bit more information about Bill 33. So I know you said that the primary focus is like transparency that
Mhm.
they're looking for, but I'm just wondering, is the bill like attempting to restrict certain lines of and like ancillary fees, or are they just looking to regulate the way that they're communicated to students? Because if they're looking to restrict certain lines, I know Kat was saying that she's working closely on creating like a plan, but that heavily impacts the USC if they restrict certain things from being charged to students. So I'm just looking for a little bit more clarification on what Bill 33 is actually attempting to do, and what kind of plan does the USC have to adapt if they are severely inhibiting our way to charge students.
Yeah, that's kind of the multi-million-dollar question that you're asking right there that we don't really know. So a lot of our advocacy right now, it seems like the answer to your question hasn't been fully decided by the government. So right now, our advocacy is very much in trying to steer that conversation towards transparency, towards kind of accountability, and away from kind of restriction, as you mentioned, or things that would negatively harm students. So that's kind of the phase that we're in right now. Once October hits and we get a clearer vision of the bill and what the government's actually trying to achieve with the regulations that kind of follow it, we'll be able to kind of more fully know exactly what they're targeting and what those downstream effects might be. Once we see that, then I'll actually be able to answer that question, hopefully. But as of right now, like it hasn't been decided and we don't know.
Just to follow up, so I may have understood this incorrectly, but you mentioned that there was a first draft that was released. What did the first draft kind of look like on that front between transparency and restriction?
Yeah, so it's really, really broad language. So the way these bills work is that this bill just gives the government the power to regulate these kind of fees. So that's all the bill does. It just says basically the government has the power to regulate, these types of fees, which currently they don't. So once they get that power, then regulations will follow after this bill is passed, and those are kind of more so the regulations that we're not necessarily concerned about, but those are the ones that could be either, beneficial for students or could impact some of the services. So as the bill is written, the wording is really vague and it just gives the government the power to do something, but we don't know what exactly they're targeting or what direction they're heading in. So that's really where our advocacy is focused.
Perfect. Thank you so much.
Yeah, no worries. Any other questions? Yeah, Councillor Logiswaran.
Thank you. So, as we know, like, so my question was just that because the first draft of like Bill 33 is just like really like vague language, can you specify what that language was saying? Because the only like what I understood is that it's giving the government the power to regulate the ancillary fees. Is that the name for it? And is that all that it's saying right now?
Yeah, basically this bill is just giving the power to create regulations, and then the government would then come forward with regulations after they receive that power. So right now, Bill 33 just gives the government the power to regulate. So that's kind of the discussion that we're having like right now as the bill is written. We don't know what those regulations will look like or what the target of those regulations will be. So in October, if this bill passes, which it likely will, after that, the government has the power to create regulations, and those are the regulations that we will be like looking out for and trying to kind of steer advocacy wise. if that makes sense. So right now, the Bill 33 as written just gives the government power to regulate. We don't know what they're regulating or what those regulations will be.
That answers my question. Thank you.
Amazing. Any other questions? Cool. All right.
Thank you,
Thanks,
VP Said. I now call VP Walpley to the podium to present her council executive report.
Hi, everyone. So I will get right into it. One of my top highlights was Rock the Park. So like Kat mentioned, we've been working on Rock the Runway since probably my second day on the job, which was absolutely crazy to be kind of like Kat said, writing our thesis, writing exams. Kat's like, let's go to the airport. And I was like, for what? For why? At this time, I didn't know. So it was really cool to be at Rock the Park and see JAG, who we're partnering with for Rock the Runway, kind of do their thing and run it. So it was a bit of a really cool experience to go see a concert in the park, but also see how they kind of operate. Something else that was also a highlight was hiring my team, but also continuously supporting all of the LST and all of the faculty softs. It's been such a rewarding process to work with so many amazing leaders and continue to build my team to build such a great year. Something else that was really, really fun is Exec and I went to a cottage trip. Special place in my heart, it's my grandparents' cottage, so we were able to go. Unfortunately, the five of us, Jenna wasn't able to make it, but she was in our hearts. But yeah, it was really, really fun to kind of have that bonding experience and set us up for the year. Some of my updates are really to do with a week. Hate to say it, but what? It's almost a month away. Crazy. But working on the block schedule. So working at various different levels of stakeholders and different admin partners to once get that block schedule kind of solidified, but also then continuously build it out. So it's a very long work in progress. This is something that I have started to work on since my term. It was something that Sarah worked on before she kind of left this position. So it truly is orientation all year long. It doesn't kind of ever end. We're already looking at what next year is going to look like and kind of that continuous cycle. So it really is amazing to see. We've also started to work on a rough outline of year-long programming. So it doesn't stop at a week. We continue to do programming, which is really cool. So kind of seeing both sides of the role that I'm in already and getting those rough drafts kind of out there and kind of talking with our team to see where it's going. Upcoming is the USC LMP schedule. So this is all the programming that the USC runs. So this is stuff from Mustang Lounge to stuff on Health Science Fields on the main stage, the concert we're all looking forward to knowing who the headliner is, working with kind of the team in the USC. They've all been super, super lovely to kind of get this on the ground running. Roberto over there has been such a big help in booking everything. It truly is such a collective effort. So I'm so thankful for that. We're soon going into training for all the LSTs and the soft teams. So working closely with Central Orientation to ensure that the training kind of satisfies everything, but also making sure that softs have plans in place, and then just making sure everybody's supported going into training. And then we have a week. So a week is upcoming. It's going to be a whirlwind. It's going to be so much fun. So it's 3 weeks of just a week. The execs and I are going to work closely on creating a plan. So we're all there to support everyone during a week, making sure all the first years have the best warm welcome and kind of get a Western welcome. So super excited for that. We're super lucky. I'm super lucky to be planning it this year and then working along such amazing members. We're all kind of collaborating this year in a different capacity, whether it's Global Village, whether it's bringing kind of different government levels to kind of come speak. It's really exciting to see it come all together. So yeah, that's coming up. I know this is brief. I feel like it's just a week, but if anyone has any questions, I'd be more than happy to answer anything. Yes.
So, talking to some of these students,
Yeah.
a week has there's mixed feelings on it. Really like it, really enjoyed it, but then also there's a group of people who aren't the hugest fan of O week. It's overstimulating. It's too much for
100%.
them, and it leads to a bad reputation. What the university holds. A lot of people come to us because of research program and not for a kind of week for them. Them have
Counselor, can you please speak into your mic? Thank
Sorry.
you.
So some of them have the interpretation that O week is more of just getting to know you guys. And it starts at the very first check-in of residents with the massive crowd and what all the softs kind of like overwhelming the car, which is great. But again, some people really hate it. And so playing on their views, what are your opinions, and what do you plan on doing with students who aren't that huge of a fan of O Week? Because I don't think it's great to say, hey, just don't join, right? I think
100%.
that's a terrible way of dealing with these situations. So, as vice president for this role, what's your take, and what do you plan on kind of doing?
Yeah, I think from the second I stepped into this role, I wanted to be really intentional with the programming that we were putting in place. One of the first things I did was read kind of the reviews and read the feedback that we got from last year's O Week. And something that was mentioned is there is having kind of a range of programming that kind of accomplishes kind of what you're saying, but also giving people options of what they can do. I think O Week is such a special time for so many people, but it's a special time because it's what students make of it. We're not saying students need to go to every single programming. Programming is there so they have options. So this year we're building out a schedule that is really intentional of kind of rating the different sensory levels, but also giving students an option of what they want to go to, but also being aware of what's at the event. So for example, I sit on an accessibility committee. We're working this year of using different symbols to symbolize if there's kind of loud sounds or there's strobing lights. That way students have an idea of what they're committing to before they already go to the event, but also continuously having earplugs at different main stages events so students can actually access grab those, sorry, on their way in. So that's kind of a level. We're also building in a low sensory room close to the main stage in the FIMS and nursing building. It's still in the final works of exactly where that room is going to be. We're trying for the FIMS and nursing building, giving a low sensory room that kind of has stress balls. We'll have different individuals in there that are trained to kind of help students that if they need a space to go and kind of decompress, still being involved, still having activities to do in that space, there is that option. Furthermore, kind of building out the block schedule, I've been really intentional about color coding. So color coding different events, whether it's a high intensity event or it's a low intensity event, having this full picture where we can kind of look at and kind of have different consultations of, okay, what could a student do if they didn't want to go listen to a concert on main stage? There's other programming that they can do, but I just can't stress enough. O Week is what students make of it. It is truly like choose your own journey, choose your own adventure. Like the programming is there to give options. It's not to be there for everybody to go to every single thing. And I think essentially if you come out of it and you've met 2 people or you've met 20 people, it is your own prerogative and it's what you want to make of O Week, and we're just here to support that and give students the choice. Yeah.
Now, does this kind of does this include with your training with your LST soft team? How are you training your LST soft team to not not be too pushy, but also put them out of their comfort zone? Some of them, some people want to be pushed into their out of their comfort zone, but some people don't want that. So how are you training your LSTs soft team to kind of guide someone, but also be there for them to be like, it's okay, let's go somewhere else, right?
Yeah, I think working with Central Orientation, Pappy is a lovely soul and who's kind of building out that training that we've been able to work together and really equipping soft teams and LSTs to have such a wide depth of knowledge and different training that they can pull on in every different situation. So I think it's just important kind of addressing that, but it's also that softs get so much training that we kind of understand that they have the ability and the tools and the knowledge on how to address different situations. So we feel confident in our teams. They come for a week, they do training. If anybody isn't familiar, LST come, I think it's what, 3 weeks now, maybe? And they come 2 weeks. They come for an entire week and do training leading up to when their whole soft teams come. Soft teams then sit into training most days 9 to 5, and they get a wide depth of training, whether it's from policies, whether it's to how to support students, what resources are on campus. They'll also have access to a block schedule and kind of the different programming that happens every day. I'm sure if you're soft, you know this already, but they have the knowledge of what's going on in campus that they can also support students and direct students. We also really try to make sure that softs understand that a week is for first years. Softs are there, we are there to support them and kind of having this welcome to campus and supporting that there is different programming. So kind of having those conversations that, okay, if the concert's not for you, let's go find something else. You don't want to hang in your residence, let's go find something else. We're on the streets, let's go find something else to do. So it's kind of equipping our softs to have this wide depth of knowledge so they can kind of pull on different pieces when they see fit in different situations. No worries. Is there any other questions? Yes.
Yeah, first of all, I'd like to say thank you because I was a first year last year. Sod was one of my Saugeen softs. So
Circle.
I understand like a week is what you make it. And I have two questions.
Yeah.
if I remember correctly, are the faculty softs full year now, starting this year?
Yeah, so that's a really exciting development. This is something that Sarah worked on her past year. So when I came into the portfolio, I was a faculty LST last year and I was a faculty soft the year before. So I'm all too familiar. I think a lot of times faculty softs were doing jobs year long anyways. We would host meetings as a team. We would continuously support the first years. So I think in my perspective, move to year-long programming, which I'll touch upon later today as well, is just kind of giving faculty softs the support that they need to continuously support their programming efforts to then support their first year. So we all know that the transition doesn't stop with orientation week. It isn't this solved equation that, you feel confident maybe after a week or you know exactly what's happening on campus. I think this move to year-long programming allows me to support all of these kind of faculty leaders just to then continuously support their first years and hopefully build a campus that feels confident and welcome to.
And my follow-up question
Yeah.
is the USC Now app. How's that going?
Yeah, this is something Saad and I are working on close collaboration also with the staff to really make sure that it's an accessible app, but also making sure that it is a hub for everything. I know as a soft, sometimes I would go on it and it wouldn't load or it wouldn't necessarily work. So it's just something that we kind of, I think, day one hit the ground running, and I'm pretty sure you're going to talk more about it, but really being intentional on how to use it and really building it out so students and softs know that that's kind of their hub for everything that they can go to.
Thank you so much.
Of course. Yes.
Thank you for the summary, by the way.
Of course.
I had a question regarding the low intensity and the high intensity events. What kind of low intensity events are you planning to host for this upcoming year's O week or 3 years from now?
Yeah. So the LMP schedule is largely kind of getting worked on right now. So some stuff is set, some stuff isn't. I think something that is really intentional that we're doing is something like a craft night. So something that students can drop in. I think for me, it's really important that students don't feel that they have to stay from something for 2 hours and they have to attend a session. They can kind of come as they please, whether it's they bring their headphones and they sit and they just decorate a tote bag or they make a friendship bracelet. They can still feel connected to O week in some way. I think that's a really exciting thing. We're also building different programming kind of throughout the campus with the faculty LST as well, the programming that they're doing. So whether it's free food on campus where a student can kind of just come and they can chill and they can talk to people, or even doing a meet your match, so at different intensity levels. I think it's really intentional of giving students option of sometimes what intensity they want to bring the event, but also leaving room that they can stop in and they can really, again, make what they want of it, but being intentional, since like the low sensor room that I mentioned, where there is such designated areas that they feel that they know that they can go to. Something else that's really, really nice about the O Week app is we do descriptions of every single event. So we're working closely with the LST as well as my AVP this year and SOD to get those on the app. So students have an idea of before they're even going to the event, what exactly the description is, what the event entails, and then we can work together. If they need support in that event, we'll always be staff with O crew or softs or kind of leaders as well, so then they can get the support while they're at the event.
Thank you for the answer. That was really helpful. I had one follow-up
Yeah.
question. Where exactly would the low sensory rooms be placed in campus, or like where would they be located?
Yeah, so our intention right now is to book out a room in FIMS and nursing building. I'm working really closely with Central Orientation about it, just because that's kind of the western side of it. We're hoping to have in FIMS and nursing building, so it's close proximity to our main stage. So our main stage on Hillside Fields is usually where our most high intensity programming happens. So whether that's a concert at the end of the week or it's opening and closing ceremonies, that's typically where we have kind of those speakers and that loud and those lights and kind of those things. So our perspective was if we could have it close to that venue, still being far enough where students can go into that room and not hear kind of that loudspeaker to a certain extent. That way we know it's close. Something also we can utilize is the care hubs. So utilizing those at care hubs super close to the main venue. So we kind of have those stop points where different individuals can direct students to the low sensory room.
Thank you. That answered my questions.
Of course. Anyone else? Yes.
Sorry.
No
Last
worries.
question. I think the concern on safety is big with not only O week but throughout the year. But again, this is their first time coming here, so a lot of people do tend to, spend more time out at night. So what are some safety measures that you plan on implementing, not only in your training with the soft LST, but with, I don't know, special constables at Western?
Yeah, we've already started to have lots of conversations with certs and different campus partners. Something that's really unique about a week is everybody but me has planned it already, which is kind of double-edged sword. But it's super nice because these policies kind of have already been in place year and year again. So working as a team, whether it's with productions, whether it's different campus partners, to make sure that there's plans in place. Something is kind of something we don't think about is road closure. So working with teams really intentionally to kind of look at the area and how we can best equip students to kind of get from venue to venue, but also make sure that they feel secure. I think training for the softs also really plays a huge part in this, is really building out intentional training. So softs understand what resources are there for the first years, but also themselves. So keeping not only themselves safe, but then furthermore, kind of just keeping the first year safe. But I think something that is a huge tool is CERT that we have on campus. We work really intentionally with them during a week to make sure that they're there at different events. First years are going to hear from them during our opening ceremonies. So they're able to kind of have that connection piece with CERT before potentially a paramedic looking person is coming to help them. So it kind of eases that level of, I don't want to say fear, but maybe fear for some people, or that level of discomfort. Really intentionally working with our different campus partners to make sure all campus is feeling equipped to deal with anything that happens. Of course. Is there any other questions? Beautiful.
Thank you, VP Welpley. I now invite VP Massey to the podium to present his council executive report.
Hi, everyone. Oh, can I adjust these up a little higher? My name's Wade. I have not had a haircut since that photo, but it's lovely to be up here once again to be able to present my budget report. Some of the Vice President Student Services asked me about anything new music, or I just recently read A Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes after buying the book and then letting it sit on my bedside table for 2 years because I was too tired to read during my undergrad, but it was lovely. So I have many thoughts about 2 years too late. My top 3 highlights for the summer, I guess, are Rock the Park. I love Hosier, so it was super fun to see him come to London. It was such a blast. I know the team had a great time as well. Hiring my coordinator team as well. I'm very fortunate to have the most direct reports of all the execs, not to brag. 7 of them, but it's really heartwarming to get to see and understand the connection that so many students have to the portfolios they want to be involved with. And seeing their passion is always really, makes me very excited for September to start and to be able to have them all in the office. And then finally, London Pride. The whole team went, and the USC was a sponsor of London Pride for the first time this year, which was awesome work from Sod. We love to see it, and the weather was very nice. So I had quite a good time. Now, for my updates. First one is club support over the summer. This is some feedback we received over the past year. Club support has been extended over the summer. Executives for clubs were notified that our staff are available for any questions, support, etc. And as well, we started posting any service interruptions caused by office closures or vacations on online and through our club's Instagram, just so people can stay informed, because I know a lot of clubs executives are really eager to get their work started for the year. Second as well that we've been working on with Dane and myself, which is gone, but we've been working on some clubs policy changes based on feedback as well. A recommendation was sent to the board to remove the charity cap, as it was known, to just clarify what clubs are able to do in the scope of their donations, letting them know that clubs are welcome and encouraged to have to hold charitable fundraisers, and that we're not going to be an inhibitor for that. So a recommendation was sent forward to the board that I'm sure council will be updated on in the future, should it be moving forward. Now, another recommendation was also sent to move the deadline to purchase club memberships from January 31st to February 15th. This is going to be done to accommodate a second semester clubs week. That's a piece of feedback we received from clubs throughout the year as well, but was also a piece of Kathleen's platform. So second semester clubs week will be happening, which is really exciting because I know personally myself, as Councillor Chow was saying, that it can be very overstimulating the first few weeks here at Western. Having a second semester clubs week will be amazing to give students another chance to find their community once they're a bit more settled in. Now, so that's something I'll probably update council on at a later date, but just letting you know that that recommendation was sent forward to the board to have the membership deadline pushed back by a further 15 days. So students have the time to purchase those memberships, and so we don't overlap. There's no point having a clubs week if you can't even buy a membership yet. Now, what as well? Oh, some minor restructuring to coordinator teams and the hiring process. So in the student services portfolio, each coordinator has their own team of volunteers. Now, in the past, these team of volunteers have been filled with amazing people. I was on one for food sport and ethnocultural sport services in my third year, but they tend to be a little bit distant from the USC executive and from our staff support. So we're going through and analyzing and looking at the type of support these different coordinators need, what their teams look like, and so making sure that they have more connection to myself, more staff support, and that way I can also work and our staff can also work on making sure that they have those gainful and volunteer experiences with the University Students Council. It's also going to allow us to open the grants fund earlier than last year. So last year it opened end of September, early October. But this year we want it going right immediately at the start of Clubs Week, so clubs can hit the ground running and have their AGMs funded by us, which is their general meetings that they need to that they're required to run at the beginning of the semester for all members. Now, as well, some things that are upcoming. Omar likes to joke that I'm Vice President Crockpot because you've got a lot of different things cooking and getting ready because there's a bunch to manage. But here's just a couple that I'm very excited for. One are Beach Days to Grand Bend, something that was also in Kathleen's platform. I don't have too many details specifically on it yet because we're still finalizing the contract and I don't want to give any false information until we have everything signed on the dotted line. But there will be a weekend in September that's going to run a pilot program where we'll have shuttles going from Alumni Hall to Grand Bend to give students an opportunity to see how beautiful our province is. And especially for students that are international, out of province, or don't have access to a vehicle like myself, it's a really great opportunity to not feel like you're missing out on the classic Western experience that a lot of students come here to enjoy. As well, another program called Coat Cycle. This was something that's been a long-term project for myself as well. We secured a grant through the Western Sustainability Impact Fund for just over $10,000. And now we're rolling out a program that will recycle lab coats and provide them to students for free. So now SOD has reached out to a couple members of council, I believe some faculty presidents who have programs that utilize lab coats to identify some locations where they should be placed. This is something that's going to be rolled out over first semester as the largest collection period is going to be at the end of the year when people are graduating. But it's something we're very excited about and I'm very happy to get going. So you'll all hear more about this and we'll be working with a number of people. I know Health Science over here will be in touch for sure about where's the best spot to have them. But that's something we've been working on too. And more, there's a whole bunch, but one thing I'll talk about is grants training and awareness. We're going to be having grants training at club training this year. That way all clubs, members and executives are informed and aware of the kind of supports that the USC provides for them. And that way we can level the playing field and make sure that there's not a knowledge gap to running different programs. So we have time allotted. Updates will come soon, but training will be more in-depth than it was in previous years. And as well, we're having optional grants training sessions with our club staff about how to write a grant, the process to follow, what's the best way to do this, timeline and whatnot. That way, for some smaller clubs who haven't applied for them before, that they're not missing out because there's a knowledge gap in terms of how to follow the proper procedure. So we're making some changes there and having some awareness built. But yeah, does anybody have any questions? Yes.
Thank you for the summary, by the way. I had a question regarding the club policy changes. Um, do they fall under the faculty of Eng by chance? Because we do have some Eng clubs and there's design teams, but I'm unsure if the club policy changes are gonna affect the Eng clubs as well. And I just wanted to hear your thoughts about it, if that's okay.
No, thank you for your question, and I'm glad you brought it up because there's actually 3 separate club systems to my awareness on Western's campus. So we have the USC's club system, which has the clubs that are present at the clubs fair, but also engineering has a separate system and Ivy has a separate club system. So these policy changes won't affect the separate engineering club system, but just the one that's run on main campus. But as well, engineers are welcome to join USC clubs as well.
Yeah, that answers my question, I think. Thank you.
Yes.
Clarification, will faculty councils and affiliate councils be allowed to apply to the USC grant act?
So the USC grant system, the way it was incorporated through referendum, a number of years ago, I think 10 or 15, that faculty councils are eligible to apply for the grants. Individuals don't have to be a ratified or registered club to do so, but oftentimes that's where it's pulled from. Now grants the same list of criteria on how it's going to benefit students, those participating, those organizing, and the community at large. same rules come into effect for faculty council. So that'll be an option as well.
Thank you.
Any other questions? That's okay.
Thank you, VP Massey. I now call VP Ahmed to the podium to present his council executive report.
Thank you, everybody. Gotta put a lot down. I'm really short. So ask me about the TNT hot food section. I've been there far too much this summer. Very cheap, very delicious, a lot of good protein. Top 3 highlights this summer, patio season for sure. You'll see me at Delilah's and Barney's because I love the patio and it's just the best vibes ever in the summer because it's not open during the school year mostly. The driving range, my goal this summer has been to learn how to play golf. So my friends have been taking me. And right now my goal is just make contact on the ball. Hasn't been going very badly. The 8-iron's kind of working well for me, but otherwise, we'll see how it goes. And then the Heart Sushi $20 lunch special, guys, please take as much advantage of this as you can as a student because this is not available outside of London. So $20 for all you can eat sushi is the best deal you could possibly get. So my updates, we've begun work on the London Public Library partnership. I've been meeting with people from the London Public Library to see how we can make this partnership work and what we can do to help benefit one another. I'm really excited because they seem to be really excited about working with the USC and having more of a presence at Western. And for me, I think it's such a great opportunity to open up new study spaces, new opportunities, and like a bunch of different resources that the London Public Library has that we don't have available to us at Western. So we're continuously meeting with them and hoping to get something on the ground running by around September, October, so students can have access to the London Public Library and we can all take advantage of all the many things that they have to offer. Club Awards. So Club Awards is kind of like a full year project. Essentially, my goal right now has been to figure out what awards are going to make available to different clubs and also figure out the criteria for the club so that clubs can be aware of what awards they will have and like how they can win those awards just at the start of the year. Currently, we've decided on the club awards that we're going to use, which I'll release soon. I don't want to release it too early, but we've also figured out a good amount of the criteria. So just hoping to roll that out soon. And once that's rolled out, won't have to worry about that till later in the year when we figure out the rest of the stuff for the awards. And then centralized platform for opportunities. Essentially what this is making there be a specific website on the USC's website, which tells students about all the opportunities available to them on campus, whether it's USC jobs, whether it's jobs on faculty, anywhere really, like a job that you can get on campus, so that students who may need extra sources of income or students that are looking to find ways to work or get involved as a volunteer on campus can find different opportunities to do so. It really is just hoping to make a centralized website so a student doesn't have to go to like 20 different things to find something. Kind of my whole thing with engagement is like, let's put everything on one place so it's much easier and much more accessible for students to access these things. Upcoming, so as you mentioned, we are beginning work on the new USC Now app. I'm hoping to be really intentional and thorough with the process and make sure this is an app that has everything we need, because right now the app is kind of only useful for orientation week. So we're going to use the same USC Now app we have been using for the past few years for orientation week. However, the goal is that over the next year, we keep working and keep figuring out how to create a perfect new app that involves our services, that talks about our advocacy. And I really think this can be a huge way to increase engagement in students and be an amazing two-way mechanism to not only is the USC pushing things on students, but that students can give us feedback and tell us what we need to know to help make the USC better. So I'm really excited to get working on that as well. USC Day. So we have a day for USC Day. September 27th, I believe, but I will double check and get back to you all. I'm really excited about USC Day this year because my goal is to make it as big of a USC Day as possible. I want students to really know and be aware of all the things that the USC does and understand what we bring to campus and our place and our presence on campus. I'm hoping to get counselors involved as well, so we can have a counselor booth set up where you guys can go talk about what you're all doing and like your roles and your responsibilities on campus. So I will get back to you on that when we figure out all the boothing situation there. But no, I'm really excited. I think this is a great way to talk to students about what the USC does, and it'll go very well. And lastly, centralized webpage for student donation funds. So this is kind of a bit of an action item because I'm going to go meet with a lot of faculty council representatives, including the presidents, about this. Essentially, what this pretty much is we're hoping to create a centralized webpage where students can be aware of faculty funds that they have access to. So for example, if a faculty offers a clubs grant, I think students should be aware that the faculty offers a clubs grant and they can know how to apply for it and get access to it. So I'll be reaching out to faculty presidents and different members of faculty council soon to get more information on that. I just wanted to give you all a heads up on that. But yeah, That's all from me. Is there any questions? Counselor Thompson.
Thank you. I actually really like the job opportunity, like the central platform for opportunities idea. I think that's a really cool idea. I was just wondering that if that includes only like professional roles, or if does that also have the opportunity to include like club exec roles? For example, um, like we're going to be having a by-election for a couple USC counselors in the fall. So I was just wondering if it would list stuff like counselor roles and VP positions, or is it strictly only professional and paid roles?
Yeah, that's a great question. The goal is to include everything. So club exec roles, including counselor roles. We're trying to see what the most feasible way to do it is currently, because obviously it might be a bit difficult to have every single club executive role on a website. But
Yeah.
no, the goal is to make sure we can get as many things as possible up for students, so students can pretty much get involved wherever they need to, because obviously everyone's going to like professional schools, going to Ivy, wherever you want to go. Like it's important to be involved on campus, even if you're not going to these places. So just try to make it as easy as possible for students to get involved however they can.
Just a follow up, if you don't mind. So, like, would like organizations have their own page that are listed on the site, or like would it just be individual listings? If you don't know because you haven't like set it up or anything, just feel free.
What do
to
you mean by
disclose.
organizations have their own page?
Like, for example, if social science has like 2 counselor roles, a VP position, and so on, would they each be like an individual listing on a long page of roles, or would we have a like a centralized social science available roles page that's devoted to us that we can update on our own?
Okay, I see. I think it might look different depending on what role we're talking about. For example, a club executive role, I don't think we're going to be able to get every single club executive role on a website, so look different there. If it's roles like USC by-elections and stuff like that, we'll have to talk to my IT team and see what looks best for us. But I can get back to you on that once we've worked more on like finalizing those finishing details. Currently, we've kind of created the framework to like see what it would look like, but we haven't finished those like small details yet. But I'll let you know soon.
Perfect. Thanks. Great idea, by the way.
It was platform idea. So go cat. Counselor Guman, thank you.
I really like the SDF webpage idea. I was just wondering, how would it work? Is it like to showcase SDFs, like projects done with SDFs, or to apply for them?
Yeah, actually, I hadn't thought about the projects done for that, but I think I might speak with you more on that because that might be a really good idea. But at the moment, it's looking like more figuring out how to apply for it and how students can get access to it. So that's kind of the goal, but I really do like that idea. And I'll probably follow up with you more on that. I honestly cannot read right now from here.
Just a quick question regarding the use about the USC Now app, and like specifically about like opening up like exec positions and like professional roles. Would this would that page extend to like all faculties in like Western? Like would those like roles like would you be posting those roles only from like the USC, like clubs under the USC, or would it also extend to like other faculties as well?
That's a great question. I think at the moment it might just be USC. However, we could do I could talk to my IT team and see what we can do about it and like talk more with our full-time staff. But yeah, I'll probably talk more with engineering and Ivy as well and see what we can do to like make it more accessible for students from those faculties as well, for sure.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, everybody.
Thank you, VP Ahmad. I'd like to propose a motion to suspend Robert's rules temporarily to change the reporting order so Grace can deliver her report before the exec roadmap presentation, just to respect her time. Can I get a seconder for this? Thank you, Councillor Lovey. We'll now go into a vote. Please raise your placard if you're for this motion. The motion passes. I invite Board of Director Chair Grace Yu to the podium to present her Board of Directors report.
Hi, everyone. I'm joining online, so hopefully everyone can hear me. Can I get some sort of confirmation that my audio is working?
Yes, it is.
Awesome. Okay. Yeah, so hi everyone. I'm Grace. I am the board chair for the year. This is actually my first council meeting, so I'm very excited to join you guys potentially I'll join you guys in the fall in person, but for now I'm on Zoom. So in terms of the update from the board, in June, the board had our board conference in Toronto, where the directors were going through a lot of training, a lot of director socials, and then we wrapped up the day with our first board meeting of the year. So in that meeting, we went over some financial aspects. So currently we're maintaining a healthy financial performance. Most departmental revenues and expenses are within budget, which is a great sign. And any positive variances were primarily driven by some stronger than anticipated student fees and hospitality performance. So the second part that I wanted to talk about is what Kat was teasing earlier, which is our elections policy reform. So we've been getting an increased amount of complaints for USC student election violations, and we're responding to that by working to reform the USC elections policy with professional neutrality and education at the forefront of our planning and decision making. So what I mean by professional neutrality is like being really aware of a perception or actual conflict of interest. And then education goes for students at large and primarily focusing on candidates. I can't say too much about this yet because we are still undergoing several rounds of revision to this policy, as it is a collaborative effort between the board, specifically our governance committee, the USC staff, and Mackenzie Lake lawyers. But in general, we're working on setting more clear expectations on candidate responsibilities, electoral offenses, and its corresponding consequences. And then in particularly how complaints are received, investigated, and handled for the upcoming election year and going forward. So we're holding a board meeting this week for the board to vote on a motion based on our legal advice and staff recommendations. And depending on what is passed or how that meeting goes, the proposed changes is set to come into effect for September 2025, so this year, in time for the next election cycle. So yeah, those are the two big updates. Happy to answer any questions.
Counselor Thompson.
Thank you. Just one quick question. Who, like, is it the USC that finally like approves and ratifies the policy, or is it the board that finalizes it?
Yeah, great question. So elections policy is overseen by the board and council. So whatever is, so the board will pass a motion this week, and then that will be handed over to you guys on a council level. I hope that answers your question.
Sorry, just a follow up. So it won't be completely ratified until council approves it as well?
That's correct.
Okay, perfect. Thank you so much.
No problem.
Any other questions? Perfect. I'm gonna motion to recess now. Just because of how much stuff that we have on the schedule still, we will only be recessing for 15 minutes. So at 12:17, we will resume. Everyone on Zoom, please stay on the Zoom call, and we'll resume at 12:17. Yes, Counselor? Oh, my apologies. Can I get a seconder? Counselor Lovey? All for the motion? It's unanimous. The motion passes.
So far. I don't have copy this.
I've been downing this.
Is the 10,000 or so?
Right?
10,000?
No, I drove.
Oh.
Yeah, our speakers start edited, so how that we're gonna do the first thing. So he added some. Yeah. No, literally. Yeah.
We will now be going through the 2025-2026 executive roadmap presented by President Henriquez. I invite President Henriquez to the podium to present the budget and roadmap presentation.
Don't worry, I'll use my fork after this presentation. Hey guys, long time no see. I'm just pulling this up. Executive roadmap, yippee. So the executive roadmap, like we talked about, or like I talked about in my presentation, is essentially a distilled version of the executive priorities for this year. So looking at the 3 platforms that were developed, so mine, Omar, and Jenna's, as well as a ton of feedback from Wade, Reagan, and Saad about their portfolios and setting the priorities for this year. Where do I talk? Oh, okay. Next slide. So these are kind of the priority buckets for the year. So like this is what in like large grouping executive summary style, we can kind of group all of the platform points or the roadmap points into. So we've got academics, community building, political engagement, support and resources, and student experience. So starting with academics, the work in this portfolio will fall largely under Jenna's purview as the Vice President of University Affairs. We're really prioritizing, greater engagement with Senate as the academic decision-making body at the university, as well as supporting the student senators. Jenna and I both came up through that program. Senate is like an incredibly valuable space to understand. There's a lot of diversity of thought around, the direction of the university. And I think a focus on academics is really important because everybody who's here is here because they're a student. So supporting their academic experience and all of the different conditions that contribute to that is really important. So kind of 3 highlights of this section. We thought we would just like pick 3 out. The roadmap is much longer. We thought we'd pick 3. So we've got upper year class grade returns. So this is like, if you're an upper year student, maybe in a 3rd year course, sometimes you can walk into an exam having no idea how you're doing in a course, which is not fair. And students should have like a robust picture of how they're doing academically. If you're choosing to withdraw from a course or maybe dropping it and taking it in a different semester, taking it online in different iterations. So we are looking at different ways to work with Senate and specifically the Academic Policy Subcommittee of Senate to see if we can't extend, some of the policies they have around 1st year courses to upper year courses, because once you finish upper year, you still care about how you're doing in a course. And so policies should reflect that. We've got protecting students from unreliable AI detection software. So we've met with like the ombudsperson's office, which like an ombudsperson is like someone who helps you like navigate systems and like deals with complaints basically, and does their own investigation. So looking at working with Western to see how we can protect students from the usage of, softwares that are saying like, oh, you used AI, but like we understand. I think there was a presentation at council last year where the chief AI officer talked about how there's a lot more nuance to those programs than like just saying, yes, you used it or no, you didn't. And it can cause a lot of stress for students. So we know AI is not going anywhere. So like in allowing it to be integrated, in a responsible manner, and giving students the tools to utilize it safe, responsibly, and with consideration for the environment, and the other things that AI will change about the way that we do school and the way that we operate in the world. And then finally, undocumented absences. I think this is a program that's near and dear to Jenna and I's hearts. I think we've probably talked about it every year that the 2 of us have been on Senate. But compassionate considerations, you might have heard it called. It was SRAs, and then it became DODs, and then it became a bunch of other things with different acronyms. But just looking at those policies and ensuring that we're closing any of the loopholes on that kind of thing, and we're giving, people who work in academics at Western student feedback to ensure that, students have the supports that they need, because life happens, but your grades shouldn't have to suffer because of it. Community building. This is a fun one. So this is all about strengthening our connections on campus and working with different constituency groups. I think as we're, I talked about in my first report, the revisioning of advocacy. It's really a revisioning of like how we engage with people, hence the creation of a student engagement role last year. But The USC is only as good as the feedback we get, and so really prioritizing that. So one of the really cool things that SOD will be working on this year is a USC town hall. So this is an idea that kind of came from the fact that a lot of students can feel sometimes like the executive or even counselors, even people who are just involved in the student governance side of the university, they don't know how to approach, bringing their concerns. Like maybe they don't know what emotion is. Maybe they don't even know what the executive is. They just see our faces everywhere and they're like, cool, there's these people who are saying they're working for me, but like I have this concern and I don't know where to go. So like a really low barrier to entry way to engage and like literally have a town hall where we can sit there and you guys can be there with us and they can ask their questions and be like, I'm in nursing and like I have a question about how this works. And I'm like, excellent. Have you met Zara and Nadeem? So doing that on a broader scale. That way it's not just like I'm sending an email and connecting people, like that people are coming together. I mean, giving students an opportunity to connect in that way. Like maybe a lot of people have the same problem and it's not a problem we've heard of. Or maybe a lot of people have a solution that they want to implement in the form of like, a club or a committee. And now you're meeting all these like-minded people that you can action these things with. It's something that we believe in a lot at the USC. If you don't see it, if there's something not working for you, like let's build it, like let's help you create it. And so supporting that kind of community building is really important to us. SOD has been working really closely with MASC, which is like the Athletics Student Council, on a day of sport and engaging, athletes with the USC. I know that's been a big priority over the last couple of years, but connecting students with the different athletic services we have on campus and just allowing people to come together through sport. I was a big volleyball intramurals girl back in my day, so big fan of this one. And then finally reestablishing relationships with the professional schools. So some of you may or may not know, I feel like counselors would know, but like law, dentistry, education, and medicine, med, ed, dent, law, are part of the USC. They're professional schools, so we represent them. So reestablishing relationships with their faculty councils as well and working on issues that specifically impact them, because even though professional schools fall under like an undergraduate designation, like the experience that you have in law school might be very different than the experience that you have even in an undergraduate degree where you're working towards going to law school. So re-engaging with them is something that's really important. We want to make sure that all of the groups that we represent feel like they have a direct line of communication to me and to the executive and to the council. And so really prioritizing that will allow for better received programming and better distilled advocacy priorities, because we know what students are actually looking for from us. Next, support and resources. So this is a lot to do with the services we run. So primarily out of Wade's portfolio. So some of the highlights from the platform are a lab coat refurbishment program. So prioritizing, sustainability, but also access to lab coats. We know that it can be expensive for students. And we also know that there are a lot of faculties on campus who need to use lab coats for their classes. And so this is a really cool idea that we've seen taking place at other schools, and Wade's been working really diligently on making sure that it can happen here. Food support services also falls under support and resources. We are currently maintaining higher than average utilization rates. Things are really expensive right now. The affordability crisis is really impacting students. And so we want to make sure that we are able to alleviate any of the financial struggles students have. So working really closely on supporting that as it's now been operationalized. And I know Wade is working closely on figuring out options for us to get like more nutrient dense and even like fresh food options. So I'm sure he'll be presenting that to council soon. And I think that's a really good way for us to support students during this difficult financial time. And then finally, professional development. So we, for the first time, the USC now has a professional development coordinator, and we'll kind of be expanding that subsection of the larger student services portfolio. We know that a lot of the reasons why people are here is to eventually be employed. I think it's not a crazy take. Everybody wants a job. And so supporting students with that, and engaging with the services that are already provided by Western and already exist on campus, making sure students know about them, but also that they have the opportunities, to connect with other people in their sector or people who are looking to join their sector, and figuring out all the ways that they can really like develop themselves for the workforce, so that they can stay here and contribute to a stronger Canadian economy. Political engagement. This is a fun one. So being your megaphone to all levels of government. So this is something that we've heard from students a lot, and something that I ran on, the idea that, students deserve representation at every level of government. So like we talked about earlier, post-secondary issues tend to fall in terms of like tuition and ancillary fees and all the things that we talked about with Bill 33. That tends to fall under the province, but there are so many things at the federal and the municipal level that also impact students: transit, garbage collection, road safety, like if you're cycling, making sure that you can like get to campus safely and get back to your house safely. The feds do a lot of funding. They participate in funding for like grants for post-secondary education students. They're the ones who can help unlock housing supply. Like there's a lot of really important things that government does for people and that students deserve a voice on. Like I said, you're citizens first. So you deserve representation on municipal issues, provincial issues, and federal issues. So this is something that Omar is really tackling. So one of the big things happening here is a fun platform point called USC Takes on Parliament. So developing our own federal advocacy program. So the first time in a while, we are not observers or part of a federal union. So like kind of like USA, there are unions that exist on the federal level. And this is the first year that we're not part of one. And so really ensuring that students still have federal representation. So we'll be going down to Ottawa at least once this year, if not more, to engage with members of parliament as they're in session and really bringing federal priorities that students have directly to government and making sure that Western students are, your voices are at the forefront of a lot of these issues that impact young people. Gender-based and sexual violence. This is a big one, obviously, on campuses and something that we're really prioritizing. Consent culture, making sure people feel safe and included. We know that, like, I mean, you can see even in the London community, like there was just a trial here, like gender-based violence is something that impacts everyone and requires a whole of community response. So I think all 6 of us will be pooling together to work on Take Back the Night, which is like our approach to addressing gender-based violence on campus, one of the many approaches. And so that'll be a big priority, I think, for this year, and something that we would love to get council feedback on and council engagement on, because it really takes the whole community to stand up to sexual and gender-based violence and sexual and gender-based violence culture. And then finally, our London 2, this is our strategy on re-engaging at the municipal level. So that's executives going to city council. I know Jenna, Omar, and myself went to the last city council meeting. That's meeting with councilors. That's working with local community organizations like the downtown BIA or any number of the associations that operate in the municipality. Western students are such a big part of the London community, and making sure that people understand, like we want to be part of the London community, and like we fund a lot of the transit here. Like we deserve to have our say on like where the routes are going, and like students want to have fun in the community, but you also want to be safe, and like making sure that people understand that like when you move to Western, you're not only a member of the Western community, you're a member of the London community. And I think that's something that's been going really, really well so far. And I'm excited to continue that throughout the year. And then finally, we've got student experience. So this is like kind of, if people don't know us for anything else, they know us for this. It's part of our mission, enhancing the undergraduate student experience here on campus. Some of the big highlights, like we've talked about, Purple Fest at Rock the Runway, evolution of a platform point that has blown up beyond my wildest dreams, but I think is going to be something that people remember and talk about at their time at Western for like years to come. The USC dance competition, and we know we have some incredible dance teams here on campus. And we don't always get to see them, like they go and perform other places. And I know it's such a huge part of the people who participate's lives, so that's something that Reagan will be working on. And then like Wade mentioned in his report as well, a second semester clubs week, making sure that, people who were on exchange or people who are maybe just settling in first semester still have an opportunity to engage in the year. Sometimes it can feel like if you like miss your chance right at September when like a billion pieces of information are flying at you, you've got to wait a year. And we want people to know that like whenever they're ready to engage, we're right there with them. So it's a pretty exciting one. Shameless plug. If you haven't bought your Rock the Runway tickets, please buy your Purple Fest Rock the Runway tickets. Take a picture, send it to your pals. I'll send this to you if you want. We are releasing a new block of tickets to the public soon, so I want to make sure that like everybody who wants to be there has an opportunity to be there, because I think it's going to be one of those things again people are going to think about for a really long time, and I hate the feeling of FOMO, and I don't want anybody to miss out. That's it for this half of the presentation. Look at my team. Look how cute they are. These are our exec photos. And you'll receive like a fulsome, like very nicely done up version of the roadmap as well before that goes public. And that will have like literally the points in it and stuff. But yeah, we did this photo shoot a while ago and I really like it. So we actually recreated an old exec team photo from 20 years ago. That's it. So I thought that was fun. Okay, moving right along into budget. So the budget, like we talked about, is really interesting. So last year's council would have set the totals for us, and that's based on like the fee increases and things like that, as well as like any of the priorities. So like when a new executive position gets created or changed, obviously things are going to get moved around. There have been no changes between last year and this year in terms of like what the executive positions are or the responsibilities, but there have been like priorities and strategic changes we're making. Like our investments in government advocacy, I think could not have been better timed with the inception of Bill 33. So I guess we're sidekicks in that way. So funding our future was what it was called, or what this budget is called. And the three main goals of this, as determined by last year's council, which again, really, really well aligned with, I think the reason why all of us chose to join the USC as executives. Investment in student experience, investing in our advocacy, and really capacity building. I think the USC has got it down to a T, how to run incredible events, how to run incredible services. Now we're really in the growth phase, making sure that we can meet students where they're at here in 2025 with all the things that they want to do, all the things that they're experiencing in the current political and financial circumstances in the world, still making sure we're staying true to our mission of ensuring that students, we enhance the undergraduate experience here at Western. So the way that this is going to work is we had heard from a few of you that you wanted like a pretty in-depth budget presentation. I'm still going to keep it, high level. But I wanted to include the line items so you could actually see them. And then obviously you'll have access to this and you will have access to this. But I'm going to actually defer to each of the executives as we move through the portfolios because no one can speak to their allocations better than the people who did the allocations. So this is the presidential portfolio, probably the least exciting in terms of budget. You can see, I would say the two main highlights, executive salary. So last year.
Sorry, President, I'm getting something from Zoom saying that you should go closer to the mic.
Sorry. Hello. I like to move around when I talk. Apologies, my Zoom creatures. I hope you can hear me now. Executive salary. So last year's council approved a slight increase due to the fact that cost of living has just gone up like exponentially. And so the number that you see here, so all of the executives make the same, and that is inclusive of all the benefits that we get. So it's like, we're not actually getting $60,000, but it's like if you use like all of your health and wellness benefit, if you like go to the dentist and the doctor and the eye doctor and all the things that insurance covers you for, it would amount to that amount of money. So I'm the only portfolio where like the salary looks like this because I'm the only person in my portfolio, LOL. But the other executives will have like their ADPs and their coordinator salaries built in as well. So that number will look different, but we all make the same amount of money. And then the line item that I want to point out in particular is the alumni relations line. I have allocated more money to that line because I think I've spoken to like how much our alumni are helping us and how we're actually engaging our alumni more, especially on things like Bill 33. We're engaging our alumni on a lot of the services that we run, a lot of the programs that we run, like how does this work in your year? Why did this go away? Like when you negotiated the LTC contract, what did it look like? Like really trying to do a lot of that like context building and like knowledge development so that we can have that to carry us through the next 60 years and beyond. So I've allocated more money to that line to do more meetings with alumni. And that's, I think, something that's a real priority for this team because who better to ask than people who created the programs themselves before we make, changes and we adopt them. So yeah, this is my budget. I'm wondering, should we do questions by portfolio or do you want me to hold the questions until the end? What do you think?
It's by portfolio.
Okay. Does anybody have any questions for me? And I'll give you a second to maybe look at the. If not, everybody good? Okay, great. I will defer my speaking rights to Vice President Welpley to talk about the orientation and programming portfolio. Do you want to come up here? Yeah, sure.
we sure? Yes. Okay. So on the screen there, you can see the line by line breakdown. So I'm just gonna give, there we go, perfect. Three main changes that I want to really highlight for you all so you can kind of see it. First and foremost is I'm going to start off with portfolio appreciation. So in the scheme of everything, my portfolio has exponentially grown this year. As we've talked about year-long faculty programming, my portfolio, in some words, have grown by at least 75 people of direct reports to me. So this budget is therefore to not only support the kind of AVPs and the coordinators that are under me, but also make sure that I can support our faculty softs and our faculty LSTs as well. Kind of really goes back to empowering these students that are doing so much on campus, that are really supporting so many different realms of students. So this is my way of being able to support them and really setting them up for success, but also making sure that they feel that they are seen and they heard and they have that supportive aspect to it. Something else on that note is the transition of year-long programming. So this line was created to ensure that faculty softs have access to funding to essentially run the programs that support their first years. So there are going to be 7 different faculty teams that are going to have access to this pot of money. We'll divide it among the teams as well. So it's still in the works of exactly what that's going to look like. I'm working really closely with the faculty LSTs to align on our visions of what faculty year-long programming is, because this is the first year it's happening. So I want to make sure that the faculty LSTs are empowered and supported to kind of see their visions for the year, but also understand how the faculty programming already works. And then a big addition is our talent line. So talent costs are kind of increasingly rising. So to continue to give students an affordable experience to see some of the concerts that we all know and love, we've added this talent line. Rather to then continue taking money from other places in the budget, this line kind of keeps it consistent of when we are doing programming, we have a line where it is talent coming in, whether it's our big name artists in Mustang Lounge or some of our kind of smaller artists, we have that line to keep me accountable of what our kind of talent is. Yeah. Does anybody have any questions? Yes. Not from me. That comes from Western. Yeah. Seven faculties, correct.
What is there some sort of quota for how many events as your long commitment? And I just want to get more information.
Yeah, of course. So actually I had a conversation with the faculty LST just last week to prepare for this. Not prepare this, but sorry, prepare for the year. So faculty softs are going to be expected to run 3 programs per semester. 2 of the programs are going to be expected to kind of have an academic focus. So whether this is a coffee chat or they're having different kind of sessions that really support the integrity of faculty softing, just kind of in that academic sphere, as well as expected to have one programming that helps build community. So through these programs, they're going to have access to $200 per event. We'll go through a program proposal process similar to what they do for orientation week. So they'll submit a proposal of what the event is, why it kind of connects to those ideas, as well as kind of access to what the budget will look like specifically for them breaking down that event. That way I can support them in not only getting kind of different facilities on campus booked, but I can also make sure that they're adhering to the budget. As this is the first year, we're going to reassess it just kind of mid-year to see how faculty teams are going. If they're finding $200 per event is too much or too little, we can really work together in supporting kind of what their visions are. Furthermore, they're also going to be welcome to kind of collaborate with faculty councils. So if a faculty council wants to go into an event, they can either pool their resources together. For example, if a faculty council wants to give $100 and they go into it and the faculty team wants to use $200 from their soft budget, we're welcoming that and welcoming that collaboration, recognizing that there is a lot of ties. Furthermore, if they don't want to use those budget for certain things, they can still put on programming that doesn't have the USC financial support. It's really just kind of that backbone for a lot of the programming that softs are already putting on for their first years during the year. This way I'm actually able to financially support them to do it. Does that perfect? Thank you. No worries. Yes.
Hi, just a quick question. So that 270,000 for general student programming, is that fully allocated already to events that you already have planned, or do you have like a contingency part of it where you can collaborate with like faculty councils for different events?
So general student programming is kind of this catch-all for the programming that goes throughout the year. So nothing is specifically set of the budget goes. Right now, a week is kind of the priority, orientation week, acronyms again, but really is the priority. So this budget is kind of not 100% allocated for, but as we go throughout the year, it's kind of looking at Kat's road map and as well as kind of her platform points to really allocate the money. Does that kind of answer the question? So I think we're really open to supporting every student on campus this year. And if that's faculty councils or different ways, I encourage that kind of collaboration among the faculty soft teams as well. But we can definitely have more conversations about it of what that looks like.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Bryce. Yes. It's a contingency fund, yeah. Perfect. Do I have any more other questions? Amazing. I will pass it back to Kat.
Great. I defer my speaking rights to Vice President Najam to talk about the University Affairs portfolio.
Hello again. All right, so two kind of big changes, I guess, are like the most significant changes to my budget allocation is the student senators MOU and consolidating lines. So to start with the student senators MOU, this previously used to be under the president's portfolio and has now switched over to my portfolio. And I'm going to give some more context about that. But the VPUA portfolio used to have 3 coordinators previously. It was the academics coordinator, the student experience coordinator, and the wellness and accessibility and equity coordinator. And it was a previous decision last year that the academic coordinator would be dissolved. And this is because they felt that it would be more effective that that kind of collaboration happens with the student senators who are really knowledgeable in academic policy. And that is kind of why that MOU kind of switched over into my portfolio. And to kind of, that kind of falls into what I would say for consolidating lines was there used to be 2 different campaign lines. So, or the academic / experience campaigns line used to be an academic campaigns line and then a student experience campaigns line. So that kind of just consolidated into one. And there also used to be an internal campaigns, which kind of looking back at the spending for the previous multiple years, it kind of was inconsistent for what that would be kind of used for. So I kind of just consolidated that with the campus advocacy line. So those are kind of the main changes. It just was to make it make more sense with the new changes and also just to kind of have each thing knowing where each event or campaign would kind of fall under in terms of the line. Yeah, is there any questions about that? All right, thank you.
I defer my speaking rights to Vice President Syed to talk about the external affairs portfolio.
Thank you, Kat. All right. So yeah, you can kind of see the budget on the board and kind of previous years to this year's. My portfolio is one of the ones that got a little bit more funding from last year's council from this year to last. You can kind of, if you look at last year's numbers, Michelle just barely kind of reached her budget, like she almost overspent. And that's with some pretty significant things kind of not happening. So one of the things was Women in House, which normally we run kind of in Toronto during Parliament session. But last year with 2 elections happening at the same time, Parliament didn't run at the time that would normally happen. So we didn't spend the full budget last year. So I definitely had to allocate more money for it this year, since hopefully we don't get an election this year, and we'll likely be able to run that event at its full extent and its full cost. And then kind of the other things is reflecting the cost of provincial advocacy. So you can kind of see I just budgeted what we actually normally spend on it. Often we budget less and spend more, especially this year looking at the climate with Bill 33 and things like that. I think we're going to have to spend a little bit more travel and kind of more of our efforts on that provincial advocacy piece, along with us doubling kind of the federal advocacy investment. Previously, a lot of the federal advocacy work was done for us by CASA, but now that we're no longer a part of CASA, we're going to have to do a lot of that work internally for ourselves and maybe travel a little bit more and put a bit more of our resources into that work specifically. So that kind of also reflects the increase in the federal advocacy line. some of the things that you might see, other small differences is there's no elections readiness line. There's no scheduled elections for this year, and it's highly unlikely that we will have an election run either at the federal, provincial, or municipal level. The next election kind of schedule that'll likely happen will be in my successor's term in the fall for municipal elections readiness. So we have to make sure that they get some budget for that next year. But for my term, more likely than not, there will be no elections. If something crazy does happen and something pops up, we can probably pull from whatever, like provincial line, federal line, whatever line makes sense for that election if something happens. Yeah, those are kind of the main changes. I also wanted to kind of make sure that we had like appropriate funding levels that just match what we historically spend. So that's kind of the other differences for things like the partners in higher education or portfolio appreciation and development. That's another increase, and I kind of added the and development used to just be portfolio appreciation. But now that those portfolios are split and kind of have more defined roles, I want to make sure that they have the development and training that they need to actually be able to kind of know about the levels of government that they're supporting and have any training that they might require. Yeah. Any questions? No? All right.
Guess what I'm going to say? I defer my speaking rights to Vice President Massey to talk about the Student Services portfolio.
Hi, everyone, again. I'm here to talk about the Student Services portfolio budget. So as you can see, there's a lot of different line items on here because there's a lot of different projects and coordinators in the portfolio. So one of the big highlights of a new thing is the professional development coordinator. So they have their budget there at the very bottom for their salary, but as well, we're adding the budget line for their programming. It'll be very exciting because we're going to be focusing on experiential learning this year, and more updates will definitely come soon. Another new line in the budget is the transportation services line. Last year, the student services portfolio had an initiatives budget line with a sum of $20,000 in it, which is a large sum, and I wanted to be more transparent with council about what that money is being spent on. So I have $10,000 in initiatives for different programs, mostly relating to the platforms that our advocacy team were elected to represent. And the transportation services line is going to cover things like the grocery shuttle, which is going to be changed up a little bit this year, but more on that soon, as well as the beach days to Grand Bend that I mentioned previously. Another change from last year is consolidating the peer support and the clubs lines. So previously, both peer support and the clubs line that are seen on here were separated into 3 separate line items, but we found that that was very restrictive and they were pulling from each other because some years clubs training takes a bit more money than having clubs week and vice versa. And so having it consolidated into one lets us be more flexible, allocating that money to support them. So there's the, I guess, high level overview. Are there any questions?
I defer my speaking rights to President Ahmed to talk about the student engagement portfolio. Vice President Ahmed. The president of student engagement, though, I would say.
I've been waiting for that live. Thank you, Wade, for moving the microphone down so I can reach it. So student engagement, really fun. We have 3 highlights in our portfolio. So first big one is student engagement programming. It's a pretty huge number, 28,000. I wanted to be upfront and tell you why that's the case. So it used to be 3 lines. It was media engagement, it was community relations, and it was also just the student engagement programming lines. The reason we decided to put it and consolidate it into one is, as Wade mentioned earlier about his own lines, flexibility. I think what we found was that it kind of had made you pigeonhole certain things into certain lines, sometimes where they didn't necessarily need to be. So having them all 3 in one line allows us to be a lot more flexible with the way we do engagement, depending on how we have to do it in the year. Because I find that student engagement changes a lot during the year based on the needs of the USC and the needs of what the students want during the year. So it allows you to be a lot more flexible with that. USC town halls, we talked about it earlier. I'm really excited about it. Budgeted $2,500 towards that to ensure that we have A, the places to operate these town halls, and B, enough refreshments and stuff so students are willing to come, because sometimes these town halls can go very long. And I want to make sure students feel supported when they come and that they feel empowered to be able to speak their mind and tell the USC what things that they want us to know. Lastly, I want to talk about the increase to my meetings line. My goal this year especially is to meet with as many students as possible and bring as many students as possible into the fold of the USC. I think we have many students who are engaged with the USC. My goal is to bring as all the students that we currently don't have engaged to the USC, and that will require meeting with a lot of different stakeholders around campus and bringing them for coffee, like whatever I need to do to get them to talk to me and explain to me like what's going on with between our relationship with them and figure out how we can get them to be more involved with the USC. So that's the high level. Is there any questions? Cool. I give Kathleen her speaking rights back.
Yeah, the last slide is just like general questions. Now that you've gotten a breakdown from all the VPs, is there any questions, comments, concerns, queries? Nope, great. Thanks so much.
Thank you very much to the exec team. We will now move on to our for action portion of the meeting. So our first motion is for election, the election of standing committee chairs. So the motion reads, whereas USC standing committees of council require a chair to organize and facilitate the annual standing committee meeting process, be it resolved that members of council nominate themselves, be it resolved that each candidate receive 2 minutes for a speech and field 2 questions from council relating to their candidacy, be it resolved that council elect 1 standing committee chair for each of the governance and finance, external affairs, and university affairs standing committees of council. Be it further resolved that ballots are destroyed following the election. Can I please get a mover? Councillor Wasted. Can I please get a seconder? What's your last name? I can't see that. Councillor Adhikari. Okay, we will now move into the election. So for anybody who is self-nominating themselves as a chair of the University Affairs Committee, can I please get you to raise your placard? And just keep them raised until I tell you to lower them, please. Perfect. You guys can raise your placards and on Zoom take your placards down and on Zoom take your hand down. Okay, for anybody nominating themselves to run as a chair for the External Affairs Committee, please raise your placard or your hand on Zoom. You can now lower your placard and your hand on Zoom. For anybody nominating themselves as a chair for the Governance and Finance Committee, please raise your placard and your hand on Zoom. Counselors, you can lower your placards and hands on Zoom. Counselor Kattenbotter, a point of information, you're on the Governance and Finance Committee, so you're unable to nominate yourself as a chair for the University Affairs Committee.
Sorry, I think I must have raised my hand for the wrong one.
So which?
I'm raising my hand for the Governance and Finance Committee Chair.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're gonna start with University Affairs speeches first. I will call on the counselor and they can take the podium and give a 2-minute speech. I'll be timing the speech, so if you go over, I will interrupt you. And then after that, you'll be able to take 2 questions from council. You can choose which counselors you take the questions from. So for University Affairs, I call Counselor Chow to the podium for his speech.
Also really short. So recently I got to publish my findings for mental health for USA. And it really tested not only my research skills, but my patience and my empathy, and my belief on how policy can shape people's lives. Writing it not only meant listening to students' stories, but it also let me know about the students that were left waiting during their more vulnerable moments. It reminded me that behind every kind of policy gap is a person just trying to be heard. The committee is where the advocacy starts. It's where we review and update USC internal advocacy materials and priorities, and we assess whether current strategies are working. As chair, I ensure that our committee pushes policy that advocates against cuts to programs and course enrollments, making mental health resources more accessible for students with better and equipped counselors, and continue to advocate for funding for Free the Dots. Being chair isn't just about meeting minutes and meetings. It's about continuing work for students that have already started and making sure that the next students who struggle to enroll in courses, access mental health support, and maintain dignity on campus aren't just left waiting. Thank you.
Thank you, Counselor. Any questions from council?
President.
I defer my.
My question for you is, what do you believe the role of the chair is?
Well, not only do I think that they're important to maintain the role of the committee, but also to speak for committee, to branch not only the ideas of committee to council, but oh no, sorry, I'm but yeah, to not only speak for council, speak for committee, branch out ideas, but to make sure that the council is overall heard.
Any other questions? Thank you very much, Counselor.
Oh.
My apologies.
Yeah, I'd like to learn more about the USA paper that you published.
So 2025, Habitat's students in their municipality, a paper that USA opens up to all undergraduate students. And after reading all of the other papers that have been published, I found that there was a lot of, it seemed like there was a lot of positives that universities were making. So kind of when I went into researching this and looking into it, it seemed like there were more negatives than positives into this. There were a lot of gaps within the mental health support, and speaking to my the VPs over here, they both know that I am a big advocate on the mental health aspect of things. I've struggled it throughout university, and I still do. And I found out that there were a lot of gaps with it. And I don't think that I don't think USA should be only branching out all the positives that we're doing, which, you know, we are doing a lot of great things. But I also do think that they should admit to that there are gaps in our system. And until we admit to those gaps, I think we can't really move forward. So that's kind of what my paper is about. Really not much of a positive. It's really what the issues are, the negatives, and what we can do. Because I think there are a lot of things that we can do. And I think that this committee can bring those issues to life. Thank you.
Thank you, Counselor. I now invite Counselor Lovey to the podium for his speech.
Before I begin, I just want to make sure, can everyone on the Zoom hear me okay? All good? Wonderful, perfect. So for my friends on Zoom joining today, for those who don't know me, I'm Braden Lovey. I'm King's president and one of the counselors representing King's here today. I'm running for UA chair because I believe I hold a particularly advantageous position to support the mission of the USC here. As my background is in King's, I believe I have a very empathetic ear towards several faculties in the room here, including social science, as well as arts and humanities, Ivy, and so on. As Kat has said, the USC is only as good as the feedback that it receives, and I believe that I hold a very empathetic ear and a ways to provide some meaningful feedback to our initiatives. Moreover, in following through on our projects for this year, I do hold a seat at Senate, so I'm particularly privileged to be able to ensure that any recommendations that we put forward as a committee are seen to and adequately read by administration here. Lastly, as I hope will be evident in my understanding of the role as chair, I'm familiar with the responsibilities and rules and orders of meetings. I have already made steps to consult with different faculties about particular concerns that they have, and I'm really looking forward to ensuring that our mission here and our advocacy priorities are particularly seen to. So thank you so very much. I appreciate that. I will now take any questions from council.
I defer my speaking rights to Vice President.
What do you believe the role of the chair?
I believe a chair has a dual-fold role. Firstly, that piece about collecting feedback, that piece about making sure that a space is safe for people to come and bring forward ideas. As I will have articulated in my speech, I think I have a particular position to, I'm particularly lucky to be able to have a position where I can sort of empathize with a lot of faculties and their concerns and their students' experiences. But secondly, as well, it is a procedural position as well. You have to make sure that things are dealt with in accordance with the rules that we set out in councilary procedure. As such, I'm lucky to hold in our own internal academic senate and have the responsibility to prepare reports for that as well. So I have relevant experience kind of working in those procedural avenues as well, but those are my two understandings of the role of a chair in that feedback and in that ensuring that procedure is followed. Thank you.
Any other questions? Thank you, Counselor.
Thank you.
Moving on to the External Affairs Committee, I invite Counselor Adhikari to the podium to present her speech.
Oh, okay. I don't have to adjust it too much. That's good. Hi, everyone. So for those of you who don't know me on Zoom, my name is Pooji. I'm a social science counselor, and I'm so excited to be standing in front of all of you today as a candidate for EA Standing Committee Chair. When I ran for counselor earlier this year, through my consultations and various feedback on my platform, the issues that I found resonated the most with students were all EA related. Affordability, transportation challenges, and more engagement and awareness on policies that directly impact our lives. You can see EA issues present in daily student life all the time, and that's one of the reasons that I'm super excited to be working and getting involved on this committee. Looking ahead, as Omar and Kat have kind of highlighted, we have a pretty big year up for EA as we revise and take initiative on a bunch of different issues, recommendations, and advocacy strategies. So if elected chair, I'm committed to ensuring that we work collaboratively to address these critical concerns that students have made clear are very much like their top priorities. Now, I guess like most importantly, what do I bring to the table? I think there are three main things. So number one, I'm definitely a type A person, and anyone who's seen my Google Calendar or even my Notion can definitely testify to that. I like to think that I'm pretty on top of things, and I'll make sure things get done, and most importantly, that they get done effectively. Number two, I have a background in policy and building advocacy strategies through my involvement both on a national and a provincial level with Girl Guides of Canada as well as UNICEF, and I'm pretty confident that I can bring that into this role as well. And then lastly, I know the importance of community and having a safe and productive space for discussion. So in basic words, if elected chair, I'll make sure that we have those meaningful conversations while also enjoying and learning from our experience as counselors while we're at it. At the end of the day, like many of you, I'm in front of you here today because I care. So regardless of the outcome, I'm so excited to work
Thank you,
alongside
Counselor.
all of
Your
you.
time's up. Any questions?
I defer my speaking rights to Vice.
All right, with kind of the flexibility that these committees provide, how do you see the position that you're running for and the committee more broadly best supporting the external affairs and USC advocacy and our priorities more broadly?
Yeah, for sure. So I think the biggest part about these standing committees that differs kind of from general council is having like all of those like discussions and like really getting into depth on a lot of like the nitty-gritty stuff. So I think like specifically in a role like as chair, it's really like the responsibility of the chair to provide that space and making sure that we're engaging as many of those people and those conversations, reaching as many students as possible, so we're getting all of those voices heard, especially like for something like EA where we're supposed to be representing all these students.
Any other questions? Thank you very much, Counselor.
Awesome, thank you.
I now invite Counselor Logus Warren to the podium for her speech.
Can everyone hear me okay? Okay. What about the folks on Zoom? Okay, that's good. Hi, everybody. So my name is Amrita Lokesh Warren, and I'm going into second year engineering as an integrated student. And I believe in policy. I really love the topic of policy, and despite my engineering background, I've always had a strong interest in legal policy throughout my years in high school and even in university. And I believe that being on the EA team gives like a lot of students the opportunity to really see the in-depth, like to really see in-depth how policy affects our lives, whether it was through the USA papers or also through the USC as well. Um, I also have experience with writing policy as well. I was on UTET's or U of T's like aerospace engineering team, and I helped out with one of their legal policy papers regarding the ethics of like space travel like to and from Earth. And I think that it's really important that these kinds of topics and discussions get brought up in students. I want all students to feel heard throughout whether it's municipal policy, federal policy, and also provincial policy as well. I think it's really important that all students' voices are heard, and that's something I really want to bring to the chair as well. I understand that like I understand that it can be hard for students to speak up about these kinds of topics and like in policy because it's very hard to get into policy in the first place without having the privileges like to like run for policy, and it's just like it can be overall like the barrier to get into policy is like really difficult for some students, and I understand that. So I that's what I want to bring to the table, that I want to make sure that everyone is heard on the table, and I think that's what I believe the standing committee is for. Any questions?
I'll do the same question again. So that's how do you see the position that you're running for and the committee more generally best supporting the EA and USC advocacy teams portfolios and priorities?
That's a great question. I think that as a chair of like the EA standing committee, my goal would be to try and make sure that everybody is involved and whether that's working collaboratively and also communicating like effectively with everyone. I understand that like university life gets busy and that at the end of the day we are all students and we're all taking on like a really important leadership position. So I just want to make sure that everyone's like communicating effectively and like collaborating well with one another. And at the end of the day that we all have our own lives to live as well and that we're best able to support all the students that we're trying to represent for our team. That's all.
Any other questions? Thank you very much, Counselor. I now invite Counselor Sanyalu to the podium for his speech.
Good afternoon, everyone. For those who don't know me, my name is David Tanyolu, and I'm one of the engineering counselors this year. And first of all, I believe, without a saying, it is very critical that the head of the EA committee is present this time more than ever, as the provincial government is overstepping their boundaries, especially with Bill 33. That is why I decided to run for chair. You know, after listening to all the vice presidents speak today, you know, this bill is something that is really threatening a lot of clubs and student union survival in the school. And that is why I believe it is important to be there. You know, I think a chair's responsibility is to be present. It's to reach out to others and through consultation and interacting with others, be there. You know, this entire day I've been asking questions to learn more about what it means to be a member of student council and how we can make the school a better place. Now, although I recognize I just got here, you know, I'm a second year. I was in Saugeen last year. I believe I have what it takes through attending events, attending the general assemblies, being there, talking with Omar, talking with the External Affairs Committee. There are so many things we can do, so many avenues we can take to make the school a better place. And yeah, additionally, I would take an effort to attend other committees to learn what they are doing as well. I believe the role of a chair is to bridge that gap and keep external affairs informed with what's happening internally. So if that means talking with the chairs of other boards, talking with the VPs on a regular basis, I will be there. I will be present. And if there's one thing I can promise you is that, yeah, it's really easy to reach me. So if anyone has any questions, I'd like to take them now.
Thank you, Counselor. Any questions?
Vice President.
That wasn't repetitive enough for you. I'll ask the same question one more time. So how do you see this position that you're running for and the committee more generally best supporting the EA and USC teams and our portfolio's priorities more?
Yeah, like I said, it's really to bridge that gap. You know, this is a time of extreme priority. So, for example, attending other committees' events, you know, being there and interacting with others. I believe consultations are extremely important. I've talked with a lot of you already about what my plans are. I remember at the dinner just yesterday, I was talking about some of the motions I had in mind. But fact of the matter is, relating to the External Affairs Committee, I believe reaching out and yeah, getting a lot of ideas from others who aren't in student council yet and bringing those back in to present at, you know, the federal government, provincial levels, and all three levels of government to, yeah, really make Western an exemplary figure within student unions.
Any other questions? Thank you, Counselor. Moving on to the speeches from the Governance and Finance Committee candidates. I invite Counselor Bose to the podium for his speech.
Hey everyone, my name is Oliver. I'm in the Politics, Philosophy, and Economics program in Social Sci. I'd like to start by saying that the Governance and Finance Committee really builds a foundation for everything that we do as a council. Governance is how we protect the trust of students, and finance is about how we turn our goals into reality. And as such, it's really important that the chair of this standing committee is working to preserve transparency, accountability, and most importantly, that every dollar and decision serve to reflect the values of the students that we serve. That's why I'm running for this position and why I know I'm ready to take on this role. In my grade 12 year, I served as president of my high school student council and last year as a first-year representative on the Social Science Students Council. I was also an executive on Western Habitat for Humanity and the Pre-Business Students Network, as well as an analyst with Western's Leadership and Democracy Lab, which is a student-run public policy think tank. In these experiences in student government and campus organizations, I think have equipped me with the skills to be an ideal candidate for this position. I've chaired meetings, I've represented student voices, I've worked with budget and policies, all skills essential for an effective chair of this standing committee. I'm confident that I can facilitate productive discussions, ensure transparency, and help shape strong, responsible policies. What sets me apart is my long-standing commitment to student leadership and my understanding that strong governance doesn't just help support our events, it is essential to defend our legitimacy as a council and our longevity as an institution. I want to lead with clarity, I want to make systems more easy to understand and access, and I want to create processes that future councils will thank us for. If elected, I promise to bring experience, diligence, and a respect for the deep responsibility of this committee. Thank you, and I hope I can earn your support. I'll not take any questions.
I have a question because I'm
Yes, Kat.
standing. I'll ask the same question to all of you, but my question, why did you choose governance and what's one priority that you have?
Absolutely. So to me, when it comes to governance and finance, honestly, one of my favorite quotes comes to mind. It's a Greek proverb, which is societies grow great when elders plant trees in whose shade they will never sit, which basically means that what that means to say is I think especially in an organization such as the USC or any student council where the terms are short. Sometimes you're here for only 1 year. If you're on council, you might be on council for a duration of 4 years. In the grand scheme of things, that's a really short amount of time. And yet it is still incumbent upon us as members of council to ensure that we're preserving, that we have a sustainable governance structure so that we can ensure that we're supporting ourselves and also the students of the future. So I think that's my priority when it comes to governance and why I mentioned in my speech that governance is kind of the foundation of maintaining our legitimacy as a council and our longevity as an institution. And then to answer the second part of your question about a priority, I think honestly something you mentioned in your platform, Kat, about how as Western continues to grow as an institution and we kind of grow the student base from whom we collect fees, how we can find efficiencies and streamline our operations as an organization. Now as we have more money to work with, what can be scaled up? How can we make most efficient use of the dollars that we have?
Any other questions? Thank you, Counselor.
Thank you.
I invite Counselor Kattenbotter from Zoom to unmute her mic, and you can begin your speech whenever you please.
Can everyone hear me all right?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. I will start then. Hi, everyone. My name is Jennifer, and I'm excited to be considered for the role of the Governance and Finance Committee Chair. Unluckily, I wasn't able to be here in person, so I'll just give myself a quick introduction for those of you who don't know me. I'm in my second year, and I'm doing a finance specialization, and I am one of the social science faculty counselors. Now, moving on, I believe I'd be a strong fit for this position because of my leadership experience, organizational skills, and ability to manage a team with confidence and clarity. I currently serve as the Western Women Outdoors president, a club I've helped grow and lead, meaning I've had firsthand experience with the impact that club policies can have, and I believe I could provide that valuable feedback. As well, I'm also the VP internal for the First Years Association Club, where I've gained experience coordinating exec teams and just keeping things running smoothly overall. Through these roles, I become very comfortable in leading meetings, setting agendas, and keeping discussions on track. I've also developed and delivered presentations for my team, making sure that everything is clear and concise. Furthermore, I like to be organized, punctual, and driven. I know the committee chair needs to be someone who cares and someone who keeps the team on track. Someone who can bring structure, keep everyone in the loop, and make sure help the team gets things done. As for my leadership style, I like to lead with positivity because I believe that the energy of the leader can set the tone for the energy of the rest of the team. I aim to create a supportive and encouraging space where everyone feels comfortable speaking up and motivated to contribute. I believe that a positive leader can keep the team focused, engaged, and moving forward. I'm confident that I can bring these strengths to this role, and I'd love the opportunity to help lead the committee. Thank you for listening. I will now take any questions.
President Henriquez.
Hi, I don't think we've had a chance to meet in person, but it's nice to not see you on YouTube. My question is, why did you pick the Governance and Finance Committee in particular, and what would be one of your priorities for the if you were to come on board as chair?
Yeah, for sure. I chose the Governance and Finance Committee because I have a passion for finance. And I believe that if we can keep the governance and finance policies and budgets very, keep it very detailed and we're making sure that we're very organized, I believe that is one of the best ways that we can make sure that the committee is its best as possible. Because I believe something such as finance is so intricate, and if you miss a single detail, then it might affect the rest of the committees, right? So I believe that I could help out with staying organized, keeping track of everything, communicating any changes or any highlights to other teams and to my team members. So for the best teamwork possible.
Any other questions? Thank you very much, Counselor.
Thank you.
I now invite Counselor Wasty to the podium to deliver a speech.
Hello, everyone. So, finance and governance are both dear to my heart. I've been previously a member of this standing committee, which is why I want to be a chair this year. So, my finance experience has been both academically and through clubs. Currently pursuing a specialization in accounting and a major in analytics. Something to understand in this standing committee. The finance part is primarily a budget, which is during the start of the year and end of the year, and the rest is governance. In my governance experience as a foreign counselor, USA delegate, contributing primarily to the policy paper regarding religion and religious and racialized students. Additionally, I'm currently creating structure and training for the digital makerspace in the new entrepreneurship building. And I want to continue the work as chair in both the standing committee and ACOSC as as I guess helped in approving the agenda for this meeting. So thank you.
Thank you, Counselor. Are there any questions? President Henriquez.
Same question as before. Why did you pick the Governance and Finance Committee, and what would?
So I chose it because both because I have a passion for it, I have experience for it, and I think even though it often has maybe the least amount of motions to pass, it's often the most important. It is the kind of building blocks or the pillars to the council, this whole kind of the finance ensures that we can do programming, and then the governance ensures that rules are set and ensuring we're following the proper rules within council. And let's say committees, if there's any additional committees we want to make, we're doing that properly.
Are there any other questions? Thank you, Counselor. Thank you to all the candidates of all the committees who delivered speeches. We will now move into voting, but just a reminder before we do move into voting, any counselors that are candidates cannot vote for themselves on the Google form. If you do that, your vote will just be removed by us. We will now post the link to the voting form in the agenda. It's actually already there right now. And I'll give you guys some time to vote. Yes, Counselor. Correct.
Information. Very exactly the.
Yeah, it's in the agenda on 11A2 in the for action portion. Yeah. Dane's gonna post the form in Slack for anybody who's having trouble find it. In the general meetings channel. I'm going to defer my speaking rights to Dane for 2 minutes.
Just for that, so just operation. What is the expect for those requirements of? Yes, it does.
Council, I'm going to give you like 2 more minutes with the form, and then we'll have to close it for results.
Does anybody in the room right now have to leave at 2 p.m.? Like, no matter what, you have to be out of here by 2 p.m. Nobody? Okay. Yes, Counselor?
Nah. Yeah. Oh, you just.
Just a moment, counselors, while we count the results. Yes, Counselor?
Oh, we just realized that you closed it the minute we submitted it. Don't know if it went. Okay.
Okay, we have the results. The counselor who will be serving as the chair of the University Affairs Committee is Braden Lovey. The counselor that will be serving as the chair of the External Affairs Committee is Pooji Adhikari. And the counselor who will be serving as the governance and finance chair is Oliver Bose. Are there any questions to this motion? Are there any amendments or points of debate? Are there any objections? Seeing as we have no questions, amendments, points of debate, or objections, we will now move to Echo 360 to ratify the election results. Counselors, again, please head over to Echo 360. We need a lot more of you guys to respond. Council, again, please head over to Echo 360 to vote. If you're having any issues with Echo 360 right now, you can raise your hand. As a reminder, that includes everyone I'm looking at right now in the room. Vote. The motion passes. Congratulations to all the new chair committee. Moving on to our second motion for election, the ratification of standing committee membership. Can I have a mover, please? Councillor Lovey. Can I have a seconder? What's your last name at the very back? Sorry?
Bodie.
Councillor Fody. The motion reads, and I'm not going to read everybody's names, but be it resolved that council ratify the 2025-2026 standing committees, External Affairs Standing Committee, University Affairs Standing Committee, Governance and Finance Standing Committee. Are there any questions to this motion? President Henriquez.
I think the council. Is it?
Councillor Chow.
committee. Move that before we move on.
Would you like to make an amendment?
Yes, please.
What is your amendment?
To be moved to University Affairs Standing Committee.
Are there any questions to the amendment? Are there any amendments to the amendment or points of debate to the amendment? Are there any objections? Can I get a raise of placards and hands on Zoom for everyone who's for the amendment? The amendment passes. Are there any more questions to this motion? Are there any amendments or points? Oh, Councillor Nadeem.
I would also like to amend my position on Governance and Finance Standing Committee to the University Affairs Standing Committee.
Are there any questions to this amendment? Are there any amendments or points of debate to this amendment? Are there any objections to this amendment? Can I get a raise of placards and hands if you're for this amendment? The amendment passes. Are there any more questions to this motion? Are there any amendments or points of debate? Are there any objections? We will now move to Echo 360 to vote on this motion. Councilors, again, please head to Echo 360 to vote on this motion. Councilors, please head to Echo 360. If you're having any troubles with your Echo 360, you can raise your placard or your hand on Zoom. For council that's in the room, can I get a raise of your placards if you have already voted? Okay, then we're having some trouble on our end. It's just not updating. The motion passes. Moving on to our third motion for election, the ratification of Grace Wu as board director. Can I get a mover? President Henriquez. Can I get a seconder? Second to the back there. What's your last name? Councillor Gooman. The motion reads, be it resolved that council ratify the appointment of Grace Wu as board director. Are there any questions to this motion? Are there any amendments or points of debate? Are there any objections? We will now move to Echo 360 to vote for this motion. The motion passes. Moving on to our executive reports motion. The motion to approve executive reports. Our mover is President Henriquez. Can I get a seconder? Councillor Lovey. The motion reads, be it resolved that council accept the executive reports for July 2025. Are there any questions to this motion? Are there any amendments or points of debate? Are there any objections? We can now move to Echo 360 to vote. For everyone in the room, can you raise your placard if you voted? The motion passes. Moving on to motion 5, the motion to approve executive roadmaps. The mover is President Henriquez. Can I get a seconder? Councillor Thompson. Motion 5 reads, whereas council's role in part is to hold the USC executive accountable to achieve their mandate and represent the interests of undergraduate students in their work, and whereas endorsement from council legitimizes and strengthens the ability of the USC executive to achieve their goals in the executive roadmap, and be it resolved that council approve the executive roadmap as presented. Be it further resolved that the USC executive provides updates on the progress of the executive roadmap at each regular meeting of council through their executive reports. Are there any questions to this motion? Are there any amendments or points of debate? Are there any objections? We can head to Echo 360 to vote. Can I get a raise of hands if you have voted? Thank you. The motion passes. Moving on to motion 6, the motion to approve the executive budget. The mover is President Henriquez. Can I get a seconder, please? Councillor Logaswaran. Motion 6 reads, whereas the executive have developed a roadmap for the 2025-2026 academic year, and whereas bylaw 1 allows the executive to present modifications to the approved executive budget, provided that there are no changes to the bottom line, and whereas the budget and the roadmap should align, be it resolved that council approve the detailed 2025-2026 executive budget. Are there any questions to this motion? Are there any amendments or points of debate? Are there any objections? We can now move to Echo 360 to vote. Bless you, Counselor. Can I get a raise of hands of everyone in the room who's voted? Thank you. The motion passes. Do we have any for discussion items? We do not. I don't see anyone from the Western community here, so we don't have any questions from them. Or online. Any new business items? And just a reminder that these need to be time-sensitive items. It looks like we do not. I would like to terminate this meeting. Can I get a mover, please? Counselor, third from the back. What's your last name? Counselor Whiteside. Can I get a seconder, please? Counselor Adhikari. Are there any objections to terminating the meeting? The time is now 1:54 p.m. The meeting is now terminated.